I'm glad to see you get caught on that now. We're a little different on the workshop. We don't start out with the pledge, so for those that are watching us for the first time on TV, we just never have. It's just the way it's always been.
You have to start.
Okay, well, now that I've been harassed already, we'll get the meeting called to order. First item is department updates.
Our first department is Parks and Recreation.
Just going to kind of go through about the last month-ish of stuff, and then I'll just continue to update. If you have any questions, just stop me at any point. That's okay. Park-wise, we've placed all the downtown benches. I know they're getting close to having one of their downtown celebration type things or a day coming up. We wanted to get that out. We ordered all of our trees for the branching out program for the planting this spring. Typically we plant about 250 trees. Trees are really tough to get a hold of right now though. I will say that we can't order a lot of the stuff we want to get because they're HO and some of the things that are still recovering on, and some of the stuff goes to those cities first. We did not have that problem, although we have somewhat of an ash, not problem, but we've gotten rid of a lot of ash trees. We'll catch up soon enough, but those cities are going to get priority about everywhere you go. We started placing picnic tables and garbage cans last week. Obviously, the snow this week is going to slow us down. Restrooms get placed on April 1. We will be researching the cost to change Bremer Park bathroom to a one-entry family bathroom, ADA. It's just one of those things that with the two small bathrooms, I think it's kind of just not a great plan. So we're kind of working with the chamber and Joe Olson. We'll get some costs. We'll try to add a urinal in there, make everything ADA, try to make everything a little bit nicer, make the entry from that west side instead of the street side. But try to get it, I mean, we got it last year usable. Now maybe we're going to make it a little more usable for more people. So,
Good idea.
yeah. So forestry, we'll be testing out the new flower basket this season. We just got one delivered. It is one that gets watered twice a week. It's a little more expensive upfront cost, but it has a 5-gallon reservoir. It's got 2.5 gallons on each side. Basically, you water it on Monday or Tuesday. You fill it up until it drains, which means the reservoir is full. And then you come back again on Friday. You shouldn't have any dryness over a long weekend. You shouldn't have any problems at all. But we're going to test one. I think they're going to be a lot nicer because they're complete. They circle the pole, so it's basically two halves that kind of circle that pole to be a different flower. We'll put it somewhere where it doesn't quite stick out like a sore thumb, but where people can get a good look at it. It's actually cheaper too, foliage-wise, to plant those, so you save a little bit of money. Is Mike at an airport? But you save a little bit of money on each basket planting it flower-wise. So it's a lot cheaper that way, a little more upfront. But we're going to test it this year. He gave us one to try. We're going to go from there. So all of the baskets were picked up a couple weeks ago. That's when he dropped that off. We have added more large planters this year, 2 at the Aquatic Center, a couple more in Riverwalk Park. Our hope is to continue expanding that rather than doing landscapes that are on the ground. Then we got to, I think they're a lot less maintenance, a lot easier to do, a lot prettier with all the flowers. Joe Olson just does a phenomenal job of planting, and he's got a little crew, and I don't remember all their names, but I'll make sure to get all the names for the next meeting. So, dog park, we will be writing a grant, or we are writing a grant for a play structure / agility course equipment. We're looking for an additional $5,000 to go with what we currently have. We currently have about $6,500. On the expensive side, getting every piece that we want, it's about $11,500 with putting it in and mulch and all that stuff. So we're fairly hopeful that with all of the in-kind and all the things that we have, over 50% matching, that we have a pretty good shot at getting that. That will go in this year. We've got a huge summer planned. We also attached a small survey to our annual membership cards, renewal cards. Those are all mailed in January. Hopefully we can get some feedback so we can continually improve the park and use some of the survey results as that. We haven't got a ton back, but that's typically the way those things work. So Again, stop me if you have any questions. River's Edge, we finished up our uniform fitting. All of our uniforms have been ordered. We have 15 travel teams representing River's Edge this season, 5 softball, which is our second year of softball, and 10 baseball, our 6th year of baseball, 6, 7, something like that. I'm starting to lose track. We are about 95% done with all the schedules. I do all of their schedules. We hosted the K9 Bags fundraiser this last weekend. I said hopefully it was a pretty good success. It looked like it was a good turnout. Looked like there's a lot of things. I know I personally lost $100 on that safe, so I thought for sure they were going to call my name, but they didn't. So anyway, I should always know I don't win things like that. But dodgeball session started last week. I do think we are going to look at some alternate ideas for our golf simulators. It's just one of those things that has never been a huge popular item. We got them originally with Hotel Motel and grants. It just never is picked up. So, but until we figure out an idea or come up with some brainstorming, but we're gonna try to do that over the course of the next year. Something that by next fall we'll be ready to roll with something different in that area. So. We did start working on the kitchen for the multi-purpose room. The water and sewer were run. We ordered the cabinets and tops. I hope to have everything in by graduation season. So I think once again this year we have 15 to 17 graduation parties at River's Edge. Pretty good turnout. I'll just keep moving. If you guys have questions, let me know. We can get to them at the end too. So. Recreation, we just finished our second sessions of K through 2 basketball, ran by parents, which has been a new concept for us, but really popular. We had some parents that kind of not volunteered because we did pay them. I just think if you're going to do that much stuff, so we did pay them percentage of the revenues, just like we would any other instructor. All of the sessions were full. They did some sessions before Christmas and another round of sessions after Christmas. It was a great concept for us. It worked out really good. So we ended up running about 7 sessions of basketball this last winter. Kickball session finished last week. Wiffle ball is now in session. We're now advertising for taking all the registration for Little League. Balkan Civic Center. We kind of set this as a goal. Our goal was to make the Civic Center profitable by 2022-23. We've never been there. It's never been there. So we're working really hard on trying to upgrade the amenities, upgrade the flooring, upgrade the equipment. And so we finished the flooring in the back hallway. We plan on painting the gym this spring. We're still working on the office renovations, so we're gonna end up moving 2 of our offices, Park and Rec offices, upstairs. That will just allow us to get more usage out of the main floor. We can't really expand the Civic Center, so we got to make use with what we got a lot better, and I think we've done that. We moved the cardio last year into the back game room, moved the game room into the racquetball room, carpeted that. It's been a really popular thing. But painting the gym, the flooring there, and then by us moving some offices up, that will free up some more space for us to move storage, to open up more room in our weight room, expanding without expanding, we call it. So we are definitely trying to create. The 24/7 access has been amazing. We have 134 people that have signed up or that are registered 24 access members right now. We have almost already exceeded our total revenues by the end of February, so that's our expected revenues. I think we were about $700 or $800 short. Memberships were already, we expect to bring in 20. We're already at 22.5 plus. So we're $2,200 and $500 over that. Membership is way up, and we plan on trying to keep it that way. But that's kind of a big part of us getting to the profitability, is getting a lot of these projects done and then letting it run. But it's one of those things. My office is there every day, and I've probably neglected it for too long. So that's been our focus, and we've had other focuses. I know that's probably hard to believe, but we did go back to laundry service as we move away from some of the COVID protocols. We're going to start giving out towels again. We did move the laundry room downstairs, which makes it easier for all of our employees to access, to carry things up and down the steps is a tough thing. So we moved it all downstairs, make it a lot easier so we can have a pretty good product there, and keep kids and staff moving on that. So we have a lot more plans for next year, hopefully to help with the functionality of the department. The Aquatic Center, all of our former employee apps were sent this last, probably 2 weeks ago. The pool will have some scheduled repairs in April, which are kind of common once you get to kind of some of these years. We will be refinishing the guard office to include more seating. Right now, we kind of only have one little bench in the guard office, which makes it impossible for all of the guards coming off break to be in there. So we're going to take out all of our shelving units in there and kind of build a nice surround. We'll buy some cushions from Walmart, make it a pretty cheap, nice thing for them, at least to get them off their feet for a little while in between rotations. So we will still start taking all of our lessons on April 1. We've restructured almost all of our lessons this last fiscal year. It's all out in the book, so it shouldn't be too distracting. But we hope that it'll allow us to accommodate more lessons and also accommodate our schedule a little bit better there at the pool. So RV park last Thursday. I have had more calls on that RV park than I've ever had in March of my life. And here was my thought process was, I'm busy and I don't have time to call all these people back. So I called our hostesses from this last year that were coming back this year, and I started them a month early. Not down at the RV park, but I said, you can either clean up my mess in April, or you can make it as smooth as a transition. So we started them a month early. I just think it's probably a good move. I have 9 or 10 campers already down there. Chris called today, and she's about 3 campsites away from being full for the summer as far as seasonal. So huge construction year, which is good for us. I mean, anytime you can get 5 to 7, even 5 to 7 construction workers, but if you get 10, that's an extra $3,500 a month for our department, for that department down there. If you get them for 6 months, you multiply that out, it's a pretty good impact for us. So, but anyway, we should have another great season there.
Bob, was the bathroom house open right now with storms?
No, it wasn't. No.
Someone ought to have almost access to that for the storm. Somebody asked me that just today.
Yeah.
They had access to get out of there.
Someone that was staying there, Deb, or
No,
just a
somebody
concerned
found that
citizen?
There was that many campers there and said,
Oh, well,
did they have access?
this last weekend I had 2. So, I mean, before last weekend I had 2. You mean the thunderstorm rain?
Yes.
When was that? Saturday?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I had 2 in there, and then a bunch more came on Monday,
I don't
so.
know if there's one responsible person that could have a key or something like that.
They're well, they might not be. I think they were unlocked, though. I mean, they are unlocked. We just haven't moved the picnic tables away from the doors, so. But we'll check that. I mean, we're moving picnic tables tomorrow, so everything will be back. Everything will be open. They won't be usable. We turn the water on to the sites, but not to the
No, they were just
bathrooms
asking
yet.
about storms with
Yeah.
getting hit and
Yeah.
what's that.
Yep. Oh, yeah. No doubt.
Somebody got
Bob?
killed in a camper in one of them places, so.
Yeah.
I know in past discussions, you've talked about possibly expanding the campground at some point.
Yeah, no, we have a little bit of a
Working on
plan. We'd love to do it. We're looking at the possibility of doing it right there in the lower practice football field. We'd like to, on that east side of where the practice field football is, you got that oak tree that sits on the north. South of there, we'd like to build about a 1-acre pond, take all of that dirt back to the west, and then off that road is where we'll bring in the RV park and start it there. So we think that would be, I think it would be a huge thing. I think you'd be able to get more weekend-type campers there with the pool, with, everything else that we have going on. So you're also fairly close to that storm shelter, which by the way, now we apparently don't have an ordinance for us having to have a storm shelter, which I think I always thought that was the case, but apparently it isn't, so. We found that out here not too long ago.
Bob, do you need to get the DNR approval to do that? 'Cause
I wouldn't think so, because I'm not moving dirt in, and I'm not gonna go near the flood byway. I think the flood byway is about the road, and Todd has the mapping. But I think the flood byway, looking at the map, when I looked at it, the flood byway, which is the flow, is further to the south and along where that gimmicky road is, and it's not a road. But we would bring all of our dirt back to the west we'd actually wouldn't take anything away from the flooding part of that. So we certainly don't want to make it worse for anyone else. And we're not, what's that?
The pond would be like a temporary retention pond?
No, it'd be a pond, yeah, and it actually, we kind of would like it to serve as a skating rink in the winter. We've got some poles along that side, we could easily put some lighting on it, or at least something that would keep some lighting on it. I mean, I just think, and then we could look at doing something different with that sledding hill, and maybe making it where they should sled, make it more of a designated area. So you kind of have, that pond, the sledding hill, and then the RV on that side. And it'd be close enough to that road that it's not going to encroach on a lot of that side of it. But I think there's a lot of potential over there yet to do some things, so. All right. Complex, we've got all of our tournament flyers out and online. We are hosting 6 of our own tournaments, 5 baseball, 1 softball. And then we're renting another 4 weekends, which those are usually 2-dayers. I think we are Easter weekend though, so it's only 1 day on that one. Our tournaments do fill fast. We've had really, really good luck with them. We typically, unless it's a 13U tournament, we are 12 teams. We take 12 teams for every single tournament. 13U, I just don't have the distance on one of the fields, so we only take 9. And then next fiscal year, I mean, right now, currently, that's still in the budget, is to do Field 5, so that's kind of the goal, is to get that up and running. So 1, we can start hosting more stuff. 2, we can have a lot more practice locations, which always helps. And there's a lot of things that will help as far as revenues, more teams, more concessions. All of our yearly equipment has been ordered. We bid that in November, order in January, and get in February. Everything seems to be running about a month behind though. So I think that's kind of common with a lot of things, but we have a lot of stuff that's back ordered. So cemetery, looking for staff to help maintain that for the summer. We are starting all of our application processes and advertising for what jobs we have out there. I hope to have a little money to do some headstone work, but again, this is going to be one of our busiest falls, so we'll have to figure out. I know Susie had put something in my box about some people that maybe do some of that, so maybe it's a deal where we start contracting them a little bit and then maybe try to build on it. I know that that's not going to be a big cost thing. Well, it is going to be a big cost thing. I know we don't have a lot of money for that because it's not a perpetual care type cemetery. There's not any money left over to do a lot of those capital projects. That's why we have it in the first place. And then my last thing, if I can just talk freely for a second, and I don't have to say this at all if you guys just want to read it, but wages. To say that the Park and Rec staff are disappointed with wage process this year would kind of be an understatement. To try to compare our department to other cities is near impossible. I said there is likely no towns in our population size that have as much as we do. Two rec facilities, run the aquatic center, run all of that. It's not like comparing other departments. I mean, if you compare even us in Manchester, they have a parks department. They don't run their own recreation, their own little league. They run an aquatic center. They don't have any fitness centers. His office is in City Hall. So to compare us is kind of hard, I think. I just think that's a bad comparison. If we're tying some of this stuff to revenues, last year we brought in an extra 140,000 during COVID. So we were 140,000 over expected revenues last fiscal year. We ran River's Edge, the complex, the aquatic center, all in the black. This is when right through COVID. This is when other places weren't even open. Other departments weren't even open or working or rotating. We worked every day of COVID. I said I think with even more motivation to make sure we open facilities and run programs to keep things as normal as possible. I think we did more, and I'm not saying that we're continuing to do the same what we're doing now, but I think we did more that year to make sure that we kept things normal and to kept things great. We brought in an extra 140 grand. That didn't come to our department. That we didn't get to spend that. It wasn't extra. That just went right to the city. okay? That didn't come back to help us at all, all right? Which, I mean, it's great that it helped the city, and that's what we're here for. I've always ran the Park and Rec like a business. I've always kept the taxpayers as my first preference. Every decision I've ever made, I always make in the best interest of the city. I just think that overall, we're a little disappointed. It felt a little bit whimsical this year, and I thought we weren't part of the whimsy. And I thought that we worked hard enough to be part of that, so. That's all I have to say. You guys can, just food for thought. If anyone have any questions about Park and Rec in general.
No, I think we'd like to say thank you because we do have a second to none Parks and Rec, and
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And I think my staff, I mean, are irreplaceable. I think we got a great bunch of people that work for us. They're dedicated. When we sat down with the whole COVID thing and decided to run all of the things, everybody was on board. It wasn't, hey, gosh, if we don't open the pool this year, that's a lot less for us to do. It is. It would have been nothing for us to do. Okay, but instead we turn around and run in the black, and anyway, and like I said, it's the only thing I'm going to say. I'm just going to move on. I'm appreciative of my job, but I also think that we do a pretty good job of making sure that we're putting our taxpayers first and the people that we serve. I think we do a pretty good job. So
we'll certainly
Thank you,
take
Bob.
that under advisement.
Thank you, Bob.
Chief Newton.
I'm going to keep mine a lot shorter than that. I don't have nearly the details and stuff that Bob goes through. But I just want to make sure that, first of all, that, hey, if anybody's ever got any questions at any time, I'm always available to get a hold of me and let me know. But next year coming up here sometime, hopefully in the next couple months, we got a possibility of a couple of training burns. Where like we did the house downtown there, down by the Riverwalk last year. We've got a couple more, potentially one in town and one out of town that we might be doing, which is great training for our guys, fantastic. You can't get that training by bringing a trailer in, which we've got the trailer coming in too, but it's not the same thing. It's indispensable, so it's great when we have those opportunities to do that. We are continuing on with our trainings 3 times a month, so we meet 3 Tuesdays out of the month. Which is a lot on the guys' plates to keep people here, but we've got so much stuff that we've got to cover, variety of things that we have to cover, so it takes that. Station mirror model that we've got going on upstairs, and then the bathroom and office down here is going well. We're about done down here, so hopefully that all gets done here so we can get everything moved back to there. We've got kind of tie into with the training burns too, because we're going to utilize those for this, but we've got 8 of our guys right now that are going through Firefighter 1. Hopefully they'll be getting finished up here around the 1st of May. That's a huge commitment from them. That's 160 hours out of their life that they're spending doing training to get better and be more qualified to help the citizens of Independence. And I think that's going to be huge. And once they get done, we'll make it a little more formal to the council and stuff too, just for their recognition, because it is a big deal. When you figure that's 160 hours, meeting 2 nights a week, 4 hours a night, it's about 4 months of intense training and stuff. So it's a huge, thank you to them, and I think we need to recognize that when that time comes too. So we're in the process of, that's going to be another deal there where we're in the process of ordering gear, because once they get through their training, we've got to be able to put them in gear.
We're paying for the training, aren't we?
Yes, well, yes
We
and no.
reimburse them.
The training is free.
Oh.
So it's through the Fire Service Training Bureau. They get the grants, so they're funding everything. The only thing we paid for were their study books, their textbooks. We bought those for them, but otherwise, the actual day-to-day training is free. It's something that through the Fire Service Training Bureau, the grants that they've got and stuff that they come in and all they do, and so basically it's just the cost of the instructor even to them. The station doesn't get reimbursed anything to host it, other than it's a convenience that our guys aren't having to drive somewhere. In the last 4 years, we've had an average of about 5 people every year that's gone off through this training because of turnover and stuff. Twice we've had it here, or 3 times we've had it here. Once they had to drive to Jessup, and another time they had to drive somewhere else. So anytime they've got to drive, it just makes it that much longer. So we figured, okay, we had 8, we brought it in-house. And I'm actually teaching that, so that's even a little bigger savings when everything comes around other than my time. But it's kind of nice. I'm here a couple nights a week. Like tonight, I got a class starting. So some of the nights with the council meeting, I bail out. That's what I'm doing, is I'm heading off and teaching those classes. But yeah, so it's a great thing that the Bureau's doing. They've got training props. They've got all kinds of other trainings that they offer that it's always free to the departments. So that's a huge benefit that, it's like, okay, when we did the EMT training a few years ago, that was close to $2,000 a person to sit through and go through all that. So you think when you transfer that over to the fire side, the fact that the Bureau is willing to pick up that cost, that's huge.
What's a ballpark cost to outfit a new firefighter?
Well, I actually got a quote for new gear for the guys. It's $3,000 for bunker coat and bunker pants. That's not including boots, helmet, hoods and gloves. So you got about $300 for a pair of boots. The helmet's about $300, which we've got helmets, but so just because as people leave, we don't get rid of the helmets. Same thing with boots, depending on sizes. If they can reuse the boots, they reuse the boots. But you're looking at probably ballpark of $400,000 by the time you figure boots, helmets, gloves, hoods, all that extra stuff that they need. So it's not a cheap thing.
Did
And
you
with
just get
that
a
gear,
grant for that? Or something?
you can apply for grants. We've done it in the past. This last time when we had to do it, I applied for a grant for it. We got turned down. The problem with doing a grant is right now we've got guys right now that need it. You've got to wait a year to a year and a half, almost 2 years before you can find out. You apply for the grant in the fall, and then you usually find out in January, February of the following year, not 6 months. And then now you've got, almost a year that, okay, so now if we've got guys now that need it, they can't wait a year and a half to get it. So it's kind of a double-edged sword there that, yeah, the grants are available, but can you wait that long to get it?
But by that time, are they needing, some of the guys needing stuff replaced that you can use it for?
Very good question, and yes, problem there again, like the last time, it has to meet a certain age before you can apply for that grant. So if they're at the age, at the time now that they need it, now you're still waiting that year, and so now they're in another year and a half in gear that should be replaced. It's available, and it's there, and sometimes you can wait for it, sometimes you can't. It's like the last time when we did it, we had gear that was a year out before we could even apply for it. So then by the time we got it, and then we waited a year and a half to find out we didn't get it, we were 2.5 years of wearing gear that we shouldn't have been wearing.
Well,
So-
we waited last time, you had some real junk
Yep.
stuff that didn't fit, stuff that had big holes in them, and we're talking safety for these
Right.
guys.
And one thing is, right now I'm waiting to get the sizing back from the guys because we've got guys that have gotten off that we bought that new gear for, that if we can reutilize that new gear, that's what we'll do as opposed to buying the gear for them. So hopefully there, and then we've got, like right now, we've got gear that doesn't meet the NFPA standards to where if something happened, we could be liable. But yet, for like the training, for like the guys right now that are going through that firefighter 1 class that can't go interior fire, they're utilizing that gear for training. So they've still got something they can wear. They can still do it in training. And it's not as critical as actual structure fire. If they're in there where the conditions, even if we bring a burn trailer in, yeah, there's heat, there's fire, there's all that there, but it's controlled. And if something happens, we can shut everything down right now. So it's pretty safe to where it's not like a house fire that, okay, I can't just shut it down. So, but yeah, so there are grants available, and that's stuff that we do look for, especially for equipment that, okay, yeah, we need this equipment, but yeah, okay, we might be able to wait a year for it. The stuff we've got is working, but there's better stuff out there. We can kind of look at those grants for stuff like that is more available.
You had a lot of firemen, I don't want to say older, but they're aging out.
Yep.
And that's why, I just want people to understand, that's why you're getting so many new
Right.
people, is there's just been a lot of people retire and
Yep.
aging out, and,
Well, and you look at our roster right now, within the next 5 years, we've got another 3 to 4 people that will probably be heading out just because of age. So,
What is it, 65 they have to go?
yeah, yep. So, yeah, Roger will be retiring next year about this time. Gordy Fenner is not gonna be too far behind him. And then you got me and John not too far back from there, so, John Butler, so it's gonna have a lot of experience that's gonna be going out in just the next few years.
I think the training is great too, because you're filling those voids
Yep,
as opposed to not having people train and suddenly not have people
Right.
to take you
yep.
places.
And that's one of the things we're changing in that, in the past, our bylaws for the department stated that you had to be trained to firefighter 1. We wanna change that to being certified to firefighter 1. Just because of the fact that liability-wise, yeah, we've got our documentation, we've got documentation they went through the class, we've got the documentation of the trainings that they've done that shows that they've trained to, but there's always that gray area that, okay, they were there, but did they participate? Okay, they sat through the class, but did they really understand what they sat through the class for? So if we go to the certification, they have to test for it, they have to show that they knew what they were doing. So we're kind of going towards that just for that reason. But we've got out of those 8 guys, we've got a lot of good guys that are really eager to learn and come up, so they'll be good. Anything else you got?
Dick, on that,
How'd your soups up or fundraiser go?
It went really well. We've got a preliminary dollar amount that we brought in, but that's not taking out any of the cost, so I'm not gonna give that out there yet. But we'll once we get everything finalized, I'll give you an update on what we actually brought in. We served ballpark of 400 people. So we had 260 that walked through the front door, and then we had another 140 that they served through the drive-through. So I think the drive-through was fantastic. I think it went over well. I think it was well received by the public. And the other positive side of that is it took some of the pressure off from inside. You know, there's years past, if we had that many people coming through, we'd have lines and we'd have people waiting, and you're scrambling around trying to get tables cleared off. You're scrambling around trying to find room for people to sit and everything else. And on the other side of that, and we're gonna make a shout out to them a little bit, did it on Facebook, but we had the Boy Scouts came, helped us do stuff inside. They helped clear tables, helped serve. That was fantastic. And then we had a group, and I know that I'm gonna mess this up because I can never remember what the initials are, but it's a leadership group for the high school.
Silver cord?
No, this is something different from that. It's ICL, huh? Yeah, I think LLA, Leadership Organization, but it's something that I wasn't familiar with until this past year. And last fall, they did a fundraiser through the school and gave us, we were the benefactors of that for $1,440, something like that they did there. And they said, hey, if there's anything else you need, let us know. So when this came up, said, hey, here you go. And they came in and they helped do the same thing. Which was fantastic. It really helped out a lot too, especially when we split our crew up to do the drive-through. Had we not had that extra help, that would have made it a lot tougher to try to utilize that too. Because we got all hands on deck just trying to cover the people that are inside, let alone that other side. So it was really nice benefit from them. So,
Dick, the gear quote that you were giving us, that's for one set of bunker gear, correct?
correct, one set. So if they need to buy 2 sets, that's $6,000 just for the gear. We don't buy 2 helmets, we don't buy 2 sets of boots. You know, but yeah, so, yeah, good point. That's one set of gear, so.
Well, thank you, Dick, and thanks for keeping the department going so well. I know what it's like to have a lot of young players on the team, and sometimes you look around and they're kind of
Yeah.
looking like
Yep.
deer in the headlights.
Well, there's been times in the past that with you get that young group in there, and now all of a sudden you have a structure fire, and you've got everybody just kind of standing around. It's like, well, come on, guys, let's get in there and go, because that's what we're used to doing. But then all of a sudden you look, and it's like, okay, yeah, they've only been on for 6 months, and they can't go inside, or they've only been on for a year, but this is the first structure fire they've been in. And that's where these other burning opportunities are huge too, so that you just don't get those live fire trainings very often, so.
Thank you, Dick.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Say, Mike, is there any chance that you can mute your phone? We're getting a lot of background noise from your phone.
Okay. If I mute it, I can't hear it.
It's,
Car.
oh, okay, you should be able to, go ahead.
How's that? Is that better?
Yep. Thank you. Laura?
I'm back. I won't be here every week.
Okay, we like hearing what's happening at the library.
Excellent. So, right now, as you know, we are doing our One Book, One Independence. And the book that we have selected is The Life We Bury by Alan Eskins. And this goes through February and March. You can get the books at the library or Elm Tree or M's or S&K Collectibles or the Falcon Center. And we also have prizes, and prize baskets are kind of fun. We have like an author basket and a champion basket, and they all have Spam in them, so that's good. You can do that online. We have a program called Bean Stack, and where you can go in and keep track of things online, or we do have paper copies too that you can get online or at the library to keep track of those. And just in thinking about the program and like the goals that we established at the when we had our strategic planning, I think this program is really good for like the connecting and engaging the community, because it gives people kind of a common discussion point. You know, a lot of people have read the book, so they all can kind of relate to that and talk about that. Plus, it pulls out the themes of the books and delves deeper into those. And so, as people learn about that and talk about it, I think it's just a really good program for community engagement and connecting with others and for unity within the community.
Laura, you might want to use your outdoor voice, not your library
Okay.
inside voice.
All right, I will try to talk louder. Thank you. So I think the One Book, One Independence project is really great for community, bringing the community together. So some of the programs that we've had that have been really fun or interesting at our 6-word story contest. Roger Allen came and talked about the Vietnam War and his experiences. We had a Spam cook-off with area businesses, and that was fun. Tonight at 6:30, we have somebody, he studied the Villisca axe murders for 60 years. He's going to come and talk about that. So I don't know if you'll be out of here by then, but if you are, or for TV Land, come to the library to hear about the Villisca axe murders. And the author will be here March 15th, it's a Tuesday night. And we have a lot of other programs too. One that I'm looking forward to is the Understanding Autism panel, where we have various experts and people connected with autism who will be responding to questions. And Jackie McTaggart will be the facilitator for that. We have a new program coordinator as of November, and she's been great. If you haven't met her, I encourage you to come into the library and meet her, Erin Zickman. Her maiden name is Krempjes. She grew up in the area, so you maybe are more familiar with that name. But we're just happy to have her. She's been a real asset. We have an online resource that's pretty neat and can be extremely helpful. It's called Brain Fuse Help Now. It's something that the state library purchased for all of the libraries, so we actually don't have to pay anything for it, which is great. It's a homework help resource, and there are actually live tutors on there from like 2 to 11 p.m. So kids can get on and say, you know, I'm in Algebra 1, I'm a freshman, and they'll connect them with a tutor who knows math at that level, and then they have like a whiteboard, and they can chat and put problems up and do different things and get help. My kids have used it several times. And it's really a nice thing to be able to go to, and especially if your kids are like, I don't know how to do this, and you don't either, then then it's a great help. So there's also like a writing center. You can turn in a paper, and within 24 hours they'll critique it and give it back. They won't correct it for you, but they'll tell you the strengths and weaknesses and what to work on. Or you can do that with the tutors in real time. Flashcards, you can work on different skills, and it's all, you select the grade and the subject so that it is appropriate to the child who's on there. There's also test preparation for like SATs, ACTs, the new high school, not the GREs, but the high set exams. So that's a really nice resource for people.
What's that program called?
It's called Help Now, and the company is Brain Fuse. So we actually have Brain Fuse Help Now, we have Brain Fuse Vet Now, and we have Brain Fuse Job Now. So as you can imagine, the other ones, the Vet Now is for veterans and veteran resources, which we will be covering a little bit later, also with the One Book, One Independence, because there's a Vietnam vet in the story. And the Job Now is for career resources. So
Do you need to be in the library to use
you
this
do
program?
not. Good question. It is available at anywhere, so you can, as long as you have internet, you can connect and get into that. So,
Through the library's website?
yep, through the library's website, and then go to the research tab, and then go down to Brain Fuse, and you can get to it from there.
Okay, good.
Thank you. So we also have the Library of Things, which is pretty new. And so I brought show and tell. We have puzzles. We have 300 and 500 and 1,000-piece puzzles. We have around 80 of them for checkout. And we have some games, which I didn't want to bring because they're too heavy, like giant Jenga and beanbag toss, and there's ladder ball, and we have pickleball rackets for the new pickleball court. It's not very far from the library, and it's going to get nice soon. So pickleball rackets and pickleballs all for checkout, and we have tennis rackets and tennis balls. We have bird watching kits. Those have binoculars in it and a birding book. And we also have cake pans. We've had those for quite a while, of different shapes and characters. And we have hot spots too that you can check out to basically check out the internet. So these things have all been popular. Well, the sports things haven't been too popular yet because we started in October, and it's been a bit chilly for pickleball. So, but those have all been fun and well received. And then one other thing, those were purchased primarily with a Buchanan County Community Foundation grant. And then right now we're working on a Buchanan County Community Foundation grant. It's for 1,000 books before kindergarten. And that is, I think I mentioned it last week when I was here. basically to encourage caregivers and parents to read to their children and read 1,000 books before they would start school. And that just gives them a leg up, gives them so that they're ready for school, gives them a lot of early literacy skills, and, you know, it also forms a bond, helps to form a bond between the parent and the child. So, and it's basically kind of an incentive program and a record-keeping program for that. So those are some of the main things we have going on. You guys have any questions?
So for hotspots for like kids that need it for school, how long can they check that out for?
They're for 1 week. Yep.
So then if a kid needs it again, they can just renew it, or what are you
And
doing there?
you do have to be 18 to check it out. So if a parent could check it out, and yeah, they need to have their license and their library card to check it out. And then they can have it for a week. It's pretty simple to use. And yeah, we've had a lot of great comments on them. People have been happy that we have them. Some people take them on vacation. Some people, you know, don't have a great connection at home, so they can have a more reliable connection by checking it out. Or some people use their phone as a hotspot, and maybe they run out of data, so then they can check out the hotspot to kind of cover them until they get more data.
Laura, are most of the communities now that don't have libraries, have they kind of come into working with the, like Jessup, Fairbank, Winthrop, Independence?
Yeah, we have the 6 communities that have libraries in the county have all gone together, and this has been since 2010, I believe, and formed a group in a 28E agreement, and for the communities that don't have libraries, and asked them to pay for library services. We started that out at $2 per capita, and it's now at $12 per capita, which is a real bargain, because we pay a lot more than that here, more like $60 per capita. But anyway, right now we're actually working on revising the 28E a little bit. 3 of the 5 communities are part of it and have agreed to it and pay for it. That's Quasqueton and Stanley and Hazelton. Unfortunately, the communities in our school district, Raleigh and Brandon, have not. So we'd love to get them on board. And what we're doing right now with the 28E is we're wanting to change it. It goes up $1 per person per year, and we know the communities are, you know, small and they have a small tax base and they struggle, and so we're wanting to increase it by 50 cents per person per year so it doesn't go up quite so fast. Hopefully making it more attainable for them. So we would love to have Brandon and Raleigh and love to serve them, and it's kind of a struggle, I feel like, maybe more for us here because they're in our school district, and so it's hard to not be able to serve all the students in the school district.
Yeah, a lot of citizens want it in those 2 towns, so.
Yeah, they go and talk to their elected officials. That would be great, and maybe form a group and talk to them. The money, it doesn't have to come from taxes. The city has to agree to paying for it. But if they did fundraisers, they could do that and then funnel the money to the city. The city has to provide the money, but it doesn't have to be from taxes. So I guess I've been surprised that more of them have done fundraising and kind of tackled it that way.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Chief Needert.
Good evening.
Hello.
So, right off the bat, We are up and running now with Cedar Bend Humane Society as our place for stray animals that do not get claimed by our city right off the bat. The memo went out today for all my officers. We revamped our impound form. And last week, Todd and I went over and had a meeting again with Christy Gardner, the executive director of Cedar Bend Humane Society. I thought it was important to take Todd because he does deal with all of those animal problems, the cats and things like that. He got some good input from her. After we got done with that, Christy led us outside and we came back with, I think, probably a dozen? 50-pound bags. Yeah, 50-pound bags of dog and cat food. We'll probably not go through all of it before maybe some of it starts to go bad, but we do have it. They will supply us with dog and cat food anytime that we ask when they come and pick up the animals. They also sent back, what, about a dozen and a half blankets to be able to put in with the animals when we bring them in, especially in the winter. They also supply our pound with a bunch of the silver stainless steel bowls for water and food for the animals as well. So Cedar Bend Humane Society has been wonderful with us on that. So we are up and running. I double checked with Emily Rogers from the State Department of Agriculture, and that license, she said, can take up to 30 days, but we are approved with her. So we are good to go. We finally got everything done and we're good to go. And again, a big thank you to Todd and to Joe up at Public Works, because without their work, it would have been hard for me to get that whole thing constructed. So they take a lot of credit within that. Last week, I wasn't here because I was at the Iowa Peace Officers Association yearly conference. I'm on that board of directors. And then on Tuesday that day, we had training from one of the leading training companies in the United States for police officers called Caliber Press. And the name of it was Legally Justified, but Was It Avoidable? And what the training was about was putting ourselves as police officers in situations where we end up having to use deadly force against citizens. So it's not that it doesn't have to be done at all times. What it was is, let's make better decisions. And I am also proud to report that I got 3 of my officers to go down for the day. I would have liked them to go for the whole conference, but I couldn't get it done between manpower-wise and budget-wise, but I got 3 of the newest officers down to that, and all 3 of them came away with some very good information. And at this time in their careers, I felt it was very important for them to go to this training. In the future, I'd like to get everybody on my department trained. We'll just have to see what happens and when they come close again with that training, but it was about half the price of what it normally is, and I could get all 3 of them there in a day. So, you know, I couldn't justify the budget-wise to get them all 3 for the 2 days, but we did get them there. The new squad car that was delivered a while back, just today, I took it out to Signs and More. Within about 5 hours, they had the graphics done on that. I'm in touch with Raycom out of Hiawatha. They are only waiting on the Satina cage to be shipped and in, and then he's going to work that car in for me, and that'll be up and running and on the road. Last week was an extremely busy week for us as a department. Just kind of an overview of the big stuff. We had 6 people charged with drug possessions, and of those 6, multiple possessions on those. We had an OWI, 2 persons charged with domestic, 3 search warrants were issued. 2 of them were for drugs. 1 was for a burglary where we recovered stuff out of a house that had been stolen, and we're still working that case. Driving while barred, 2 charged with burglary, and 2 cases identity theft, fraud, working warrants on 1. And we think we have the other one identified, and how we got that one identified is Sergeant Isley, my investigator, the Lean Investigators meeting in Manchester, and that's Law Enforcement Intelligence Network. And that is investigators coming together to share information. It was a program that was started in the late 1980s in Iowa, and it's the foremost in the nation of information sharing. And so due to those meetings and that connection that we have, we think we have the other person identified. And without that, we wouldn't have, because that person wasn't from our community that did this. I did talk with Nikki today down at the Chamber of Commerce. We received word that I do not need a parade permit this year for the July 4th parade. So we will go forth with that. Our only hiccup, like I've talked to Brian about and to Nikki, is that if that Second Street intersection is torn up, we can't do it because then we won't have any time for east and west. So that's good news. I am applying for a grant for Fliers for the squad cars, forward-looking infrared, night vision, if it were. A while back, I told the council we get a $5,000 gift from a person in Brandon. That will be my money that I put in towards that. So we're very much hoping that we can outfit each car with FLIR. What that does is, guys driving around at night, you have a lost person, missing child, or suspect on the run in the dead of night. That'll find them quicker than anything else, because they can hide under multiple layers of stuff and we'll still find them. So.
Is that a mobile unit, Dave, or is that something to be mounted in the vehicle?
That'll be mounted on the vehicle, so on the spotlight on the outside, Brian, it gets mounted to that and then it'll run into our computer. And so then as you drive along, if that's on, it'll pop up a box when a body is seen, a person, and it could be somewhere where you don't even think that there's anything out there, and all of a sudden you'll see that heat signature of a person. It'll pop up with the box and show you where it's at. It was first developed with the military, and then it became popular actually with the higher end car companies, and that's where it has evolved to law enforcement, because they were placing those in the grills of cars so that you could see deer and stuff on the road at night. And now we've got use of it. We had them in 01 and absolutely loved it. And so I think it's something that our officers could use. And it's not just for the law enforcement side. You know, somebody wanders away from a nursing home in the dead of night, we're going to pick them up a lot quicker than we would anything else.
Is that similar to what the fire department uses to find a firefighter if they go down in the building or something?
Yep, the heat signatures, they have the handhelds on that, and it's very similar. But ours being mounted on the car, you know, it helps out for the privacy purposes and all that. But I will tell you, if you drive past a house at night and it's not well insulated in the winter, that house will glow up because of all the heat escaping. So that's kind of how it does, and there's companies that do that. They just go around with these things and look at houses, and they'll tell you where you got heat escaping and things like that. My only bad side of things right now is over the past week, and especially today, I took a whole bunch of calls about those flashing signs out there on the speed zones, for the school zone, for the speed cameras. The fact that they flash all the time, even when school isn't in. So I don't have an answer. What the person, when I talked to them today, was there's really no requirement for it. The council put those in to try and help out. But, and then the other complaint is that the one is so far back on the west side that if you leave Casey's or Spawn and Rose and go out, you don't get to see it anyway. And so I told the person I agreed with them, and they, you know, if they don't like them, they don't need to be there, and we can even just take them out. When the Gatso people came and rode with me, they looked at our signage and said, well, you guys are, you know, you've got tons of signs compared to everybody else. So that's something that the council can take into consideration as we continue to revisit this. And also if we look at where we're at with that speed zone and the zone and what we enforce at. I mean, if that's a discussion we need to have at some point, then we do. But as far as those flashing signs go, I've found nothing in the federal code, I've found nothing in the state code that requires us to have flashing signs. And so I don't know if that's something the council wants to look at and make a determination at a later point, just to take the flashing thing off, leave the signage up that says during the school times, and go from there, because I understand it's confusing. If there's no school and it's still flashing, people think it's being enforced. I try to explain, no, there's the mechanism that we have not to enforce it, but they're still complaining, so.
So does it stay on 24/7 or
No, it's
just when they call school?
It's programmed during school times to flash. But what happens is today's school is late, but they were still flashing in the morning. And then it was canceled, and then they still flash in the afternoon. So they were still flashing, but it's not enforceable because school isn't in. But they're still flashing like it is. So that's the big complaint I'm getting.
But now that we've had them, we take them out, they'll complain too.
Right,
will.
and Just as a refresher, we did put the flashing signs in when the cameras first went in as a courtesy to try and draw attention to it. We've tried different things to bring attention to the speed zone, but the flashing lights on the signs on east and west were one more attempt to say, hey, pay attention to your speed. It is more about your speed, not the cameras, but it is, as Dave said, a courtesy. We knew that when they went in, that it was just one more attempt.
Yeah. And I ended the conversation with, fine, I agree with you. Let's take the flashing lights out, because if you don't like them because they're flashing at other times, take them out and then we won't have them. Because it's not, that argument is not a speed camera argument. The speed camera argument is second. And I know the person that complained to me, it's the same person who doesn't want speed cameras either. And I said, we can discuss that too. And I said, I would stand up here in front of you tonight and we would discuss that. So it's out there for discussion. We can take that up at a later time. Obviously, as a committee now, as a whole, this is the time just to pass that information to you so we have that.
We did discuss that with the school district a while back, and they have a computer that can control it, but the problem is they can't do it from the building. They have to go right out there, which particularly if you're calling school because of snow or whatever, it's not exactly great to take a computer out to the pole.
And we have had good luck because we do check those and make sure they're flashing during the right times. And we had one on the eastbound side wasn't flashing, but the westbound was. And so we got with Steve Noyes at the school district and he went out and fixed it for us and we let him know. And within that day, it was taken care of. I think one of the big hangups though is if the signs that flash aren't flashing at the proper time, people get hung up on that. And they think, well, that's when everything's getting enforced and you guys are wrong. Well, I get that. The sign by flashing during that time is wrong because school isn't in. So that would be the question. If we remove the flashing but leave the signage that says during the times, then we have no issue. Then there's no complaint. Read the signs and that's what it is.
I think most people would be appreciative having the flashing signs just to kind of remind them a little bit. You're going to have somebody complain about it any way you look at it.
And to be quite honest with you, there's those that just complain about the signs. I mean, good friend of mine complains, or about the speed cameras, good friend of mine complains all the time. And so I tell him, look, I didn't put them in. I'm taking care of them. I'm doing them. And I'm the one that's in charge of gathering the data. The decision makers sit in front of me when I come up here to this podium and speak.
The other side of that is that normally, if you put a new stop sign in somewhere, it's a limited amount of time that they do the flashing, circumference of the sign, and then it's not forever. It's, I don't know what
But you
that
always
time.
stop at that corner, where these,
Correct.
it does vary, because I go by there numerous times on some days. Sometimes it's flashing, sometimes it's not. So it is a nice reminder to those who go through numerous times, especially some of the bigger trucks that go through there, that's a time to really slow down.
And I guess overall,
I don't know.
it's just food for thought, just like what I'm giving you each and every month for the report that shows the breakdown of the speeds through those school zones and the enforcement thereof, to be able to have you make a decision if you want to tweak anything along that lines, because again, you're the legislative body, I'm the executive branch, and it's you that makes the decision where we go with that, not me. So I'll keep giving you the information, you keep telling me what to do.
We appreciate that.
No.
In your discussion with Sense of Gasco, how'd they feel about the camera at Dairy Queen and the relocation of that one?
So we actually drove around and went down there and we got out, we looked at it, and we also went to the west side. Our big worry with the camera by Dairy Queen is the fact if we take that down, the DOT permitting, once we go to move that back up, is gonna be a horrible nightmare. If we leave it up during that time, there'll be a limited amount of enforcement on it due to that corner coming out on the detour. But overall, from their end of it, I don't think they're too concerned, so they may just leave that one up. And then we went out to the west side and looked at it, and they are getting the pieces together to add the camera for the eastbound side, is where we were at. We are very small potatoes on their end. They just took on Providence, Rhode Island here a while back, and within the first week, they had something like 10,000 citations that they had to process. So that's been a part of what has happened with us, plus the fact they're short on people, just like everybody else is with the COVID. But it was nice to be able to have them in town and take them out and do those.
Did they ever say what their reasoning was that they didn't hit the other direction?
That was a part of, they thought that camera was gonna take pictures both ways, and then it can't because taking a picture of the person, and then we had somebody else who wasn't in a part of that discussion from before, so I mean, we're kind of picking up where somebody else left off on both ends of it, myself included, but I'm still driving that discussion with them. But we should have, I think as far as that 3rd Avenue Southeast camera goes, they're not gonna do anything with it. And I guess my thought process would be on the west side camera, if we're gonna add that, the summertime would be the time to add that, because A, our traffic is lower, we don't have to worry about doing that during that time, and plus a chance to, you know, have everybody get used to the fact it's there before we restart school again.
I think everybody thinks it's there already.
I understand that.
I think you're right.
I get calls saying, oh, I'm sorry, I went through, I had an emergency, yada, 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 and I was heading to the hospital. I'm like, oh, you're okay, so.
I will, John, and because you were part of that original conversation, Gatso did believe that one camera was going to take both directions, and that's the way they structured it when they put it in. There was some pushback, in part through DOT and reminders of some issues at the state level that's unique to Iowa, that they had to shut off the one direction, if you will. So
They've identified a pole out there for the westbound side that's owned by the city that they can utilize, so it won't be a problem there. And just a quick note, I don't know if I talked to you about this, and I think it was during one of the budget hearings, but I had a chance to testify in front of the Senate subcommittee here a while back for 2 different bills that were introduced in the legislature. One was to require any company doing speed camera work or red traffic camera work in the state of Iowa to be based in the state of Iowa. And then the second was that a police department should do studies and then also try anything else before speed cameras are utilized. My testimony was that we don't require that on anything else that we use within the department. And it would set a bad precedent to tell us as a municipality which companies we can use from the state level. And then the second bill, 2062, I testified to the fact that the reason the speed cameras are up is because we don't have the capability to be out there each and every day at that full hour. Those bills haven't, they progressed out of subcommittee to committee, and I believe they made the funnel, but we'll see where they go from here. I did speak to our lobbyist for the Iowa Peace Officers Association. She's aware of my thoughts on that, and she's going to continue to move that forward for me personally as a board member. And Senator Tony Bisignano out of Des Moines is going to be big for us on that. He's a big proponent of the speed cameras, so she was going to talk with him again at my behest.
Where is this company located again that we have?
they're in the East Coast.
Maryland.
Yeah.
Yeah, Maryland. And it's one of those things, once they put the infrastructure in, and I mean, it's massive, the amount of computer, hardware, software, and all that they have to do. I don't think there'd be room for any more. I think worst comes to worst, if they had in a business in Iowa, they'd start up a subsidiary and call it Census Gatso Iowa. They'd put a place down in Des Moines where one person would answer phones, and then they would qualify anyway. So I don't think that's a problem. And the second bill was so wishy-washy with what we would actually have to do before we could put speed cameras up. I don't think that'd be a problem for us at this point unless it gets amended.
Gatso does have an engineer in Cedar Rapids currently as well.
Yeah. And Gatso had someone on that same subcommittee who testified in front of that Senate subcommittee, the same one I did, as well as Wayne German, the police chief from Cedar Rapids. Lastly, that brings me to this past weekend, as Bob mentioned, we had the Bags Tournament Canine Fundraiser, which went very well. Officer Cass has been working on this since October, since I became the chief. He did a very good job. The community outreach that he does day in and day out with that canine program and the overall backing of this community is absolutely wonderful. the sponsors, the prizes that we had and everything else. Absolutely wonderful. One big thank you on that is Bob Beatty. Bob Beatty ran that tournament for us. He had that facility ready for us. And I will tell you, when we come around to talking about where we spend our money, I had a lot of comments from people out of town, not only from the Bags tournament people, but he also had one of the lanes being utilized down there for hit tracks. They were playing baseball in there that day, and I know people from Sumner and some other places that were there, they were absolutely amazed. And then when I told them, you know, what all we do in there, they thought that was the most wonderful thing ever. So, great thank you to him and his staff for helping us get that ready and running that. That was a wonderful deal, which then I believe I'm last because that leads me into our next topic of discussion.
Right, if we move into Titan.
Yes. So probably about December, Officer Cass came to me and was telling me about the issues that Titan had at that time. They weren't completely apparent, but he was going through some issues, and most recently, he's been getting to where he's getting to the point he has to retire. I mean, it's just it happens. That's what happens with dogs, and mainly it's on that back end, and that's where they always do that. So with that being said, and with the Bags Tournament fundraiser, I believe we already have enough money within that canine fund where there'll be no tax dollars spent. If you as a council would give us the blessing to go ahead and have him purchase a dog. He looked into it, and originally he was gonna take 2 weeks vacation and fly to Poland to get his dog, because that's where the last dog came from. And he was gonna do it on his own dime. Because when he came to me and asked, could we do that? I said, absolutely not. Said the optics of that wouldn't be as good, but he said, if I fly on my own, I said, take your own time. You wanna go, go. That's fine. And he was going to, he's that committed to the program. I mean, he really is. But the way it sounds with the current situation in the Ukraine, that is affecting dogs, and I don't know how long that's gonna go on, and I don't know how long and how close to the border in Poland the supplier is for these dogs, but that's where the dog is gonna come from, because that's where our last one came from, and then it would go into that training process. But I guess, since we're at committee of a whole tonight, that's something for you to take in, and if you have any questions on any of that, what I would ask that you do is go ahead and direct those either towards me, and I'll get Officer Cass's answer here, or I'll get him here at the next council meeting where we can make decisions, and then we can go from there. But this is all part of the same discussion that we've been having, 2 months ago, I think I talked to you about some of these things, and so, and if I wasn't sold on the K-9 program before, I'm sold on it now after what I saw this last weekend. Not just from citizens of ours and business owners of our town, but from the surrounding towns and everybody that came out in the outpouring of support. Would we have probably 100 and some people total that came there, and we had 60 some that played bags, but a lot of community members just showed up just because they wanted to be a part of it.
Is there a particular reason he wants to go to Poland, or is that a personal choice? He wants to get it from someplace?
Well, as far as where they get it, there's specific dog suppliers, and again, I'll let him answer better, but from my knowledge, there's specific dog suppliers for these dogs that's what they raise them for. They're not raised to become pets of any type ever, and there's a specific way they're trained up, and so because of their economy, it's a better job for them to be able to do it there. There's not really anybody here in the United States that does it, that breeds dogs to become canines. And I guess from that end, I don't know as much about it, but if I was to say, let's buy a police car, I wouldn't go and buy a used Yugo. I would want to buy that best that we can get with the money we have, and I think that's why we would do it, John.
Well, I know when I was in the Air Force, I had a couple of friends of mine that were dog handlers for security police, and they came from the United States somewhere, I don't know where, but they had a huge training program down in Lackland.
So there's the training programs in the U.S., but then like the dog suppliers that I know are mainly overseas.
Okay.
The training programs, I think the one that you might have even known about was the one out in Indiana. There was a huge one in Indiana, and I know when the county had Aki and a couple of the other dogs that they had, they all went through Indiana, but they all came out of either Germany or Poland.
Okay.
And I think that's where it's at. And again, if I misspeak on this, I'll get the expert and I'll have him answer your questions, or I'll ask that question to him.
I'm no expert either, so.
It wasn't, one of the things with Titan, there's two kinds of dogs, and one is not a friendly dog to a degree, and Titan's sociable dog. And I think that's was the big thing with choosing Titan, that some departments or some places get dogs that are harder to handle.
In some way, a lot of it is how good is your trainer? And I think we've seen the track record of Officer Cass with that dog and how good that dog is with our citizenry, with the kids and everything else. Just like breed-specific bans that cities sometimes have, like on pit bulls, it's not the pit bulls themselves, it's the owners and the horrible things and the horrible ways they raise them. And I'm here to tell you, there's bad canine handlers in the canine world, both cops, military, and everybody else. And if you get a bad handler, that will make that dog worse more than that dog's breeding and everything else will. But I think on the front end of it is where the early years in that dog's life is when they really raise it for a specific purpose. And I think that's why.
Is it, Al, can we get that on next meeting agenda so they can get the process started? Since they've got all the money they need.
Yeah, and
That's what I was just gonna ask. What do we need to do to get that going?
Right. The next step is for the council, there's two things that we need to do. One is you need to retire, officially retire the, I'll call it the asset that we have, recognize that it is at the end of service life, because it is city property. The next piece is to authorize the department to go out and, initiate that process. So we just want the council's blessing so that we're all on the same page. We do it in a regular council meeting. Pretty simple action, but we will make it formal.
Does Cass keep Titan?
That's the other thing I was gonna tell you, and I forgot. So normally what happens is when those dogs go, they get gifted down to their handler. The reason being is you've now taken a piece of a tool that we've had on this department for years, and to give it to anybody else, it's almost like giving them an old weapon. You're like, oh, here you go. It's something where he's interested in taking that dog, keeping it, and giving it a good home for the rest of his life. And we know we have the support there for that, and I can't think of anything better. If he didn't want it, we'd have a really hard decision to make, because I don't know if we could give that dog out to anybody else with a clear conscience that would use it in the wrong way and then have that come back on us.
Ex-Mayor Davis might like Titan. No, not really.
I'm sure she would.
She didn't even want to swear him in.
I might have to get a poodle to start her out with, and I'll see where she goes with that. So the other thing we'll be able to do is we'll be able to present you with a clear total amount in 2 weeks as to where we're at, or 1 week, as to where we're at on that money, and I'll have the number for you exactly as to what that dog will cost, and then we'll go from there. But I think we're more than covered on the dog and probably on the training for that dog. The only thing we'll be out as a city is the time away for the initial training on that.
Well, I agree with you. I think it's been wonderful for the community, and Titan's well-earned his keep.
I was just gonna say, if you haven't had an opportunity to watch one of these dogs in action, they have come out and presented to our kids, and it's really neat to see the kids.
We wanted to do that at the fundraiser, and it just wasn't in the cards.
He was down there. Oh, you mean yeah, there was way too many people for him to actually put on a show. Again, he was down there and interacting with people, Titan was, and not only the people at the Bags tournament, but the kids who were at the baseball side of it. And again, Brian and I got to see it, how much outreach that dog gives our department. And then quickly, I almost forgot, we had probably about 75% of our officers either played in the tournament, came down and helped work it, or just stopped by to support us. And so the department backing for this program is wonderful as well.
Well, and now we know that the office staff at City Hall cannot be feeding the new dog as much.
Never fed him.
Don't worry.
He's
I'm
too
gonna-
busy sniffing around
My
and
next trip to
sitting
Florida, I'm gonna
right.
bring back a lizard, and we'll drop that off here.
Are the dogs always male?
No, Not necessarily. They do tend to find that the male dogs have a little bit more of that go-getiveness, but I have worked with some female dogs. I've taken bites from probably 6 or 7 different dogs in the past.
Just curious.
There's no sexism in the department on that side of it. But, we would welcome a female dog, but most every dog that I've ever worked with has been male, but I have known some female dogs. I think those are more on the tracking side of it too, but
Well, thank you.
thank you very much.
Chief?
Thank you, Chief.
Okay. Next item here was discussion on the cost-free decorative street banner program, and that was just something that had come up that, I don't know, Nikki, did you want to talk about this?
Oh, yeah, we can.
I know you hate to talk, but
I hate to talk like this. Ask Al, I can call him and talk to him for an hour. Bob sent us the email to the 175th Committee and also the City Council people about this company out of New York offering these banners. I went over their contract per se, and so did Casey and I think Todd and all of you, I'm sure. This can be done 100% locally. Independence Light and Power takes up, puts down the banners all year, every time it's done. Actually, Tim Tudor sent me a message the other day and said, what are we putting up after I take down the winter banners, right? So we, Signs and More for the last 10 years has provided all the banners for Independence, including the senior banners. And another thing with these banners, they're 30 by 72. Our banners are 30 by 60. So it would be the moving of hardware, kind of just like Casey and I talked about. The chamber can act as the marketing interface in that. Independence Light and Power takes them up and puts them down, and Signs and More can print them for us locally. I would assume, I don't know numbers, they don't have any numbers of what they would be calling businesses and asking businesses to pay for these, but Casey thought maybe it would be at a cost of $500 to $1,000 a year. We would never, that's a huge amount
Total, not per banner, but all the banner,
per banner.
per banner, okay.
Yeah,
Thank
per
you.
banner. So I would assume that he kind of knows that from other companies that might do this. I tried calling today to the company to see if I could get some more information, but I called too late. They were already closed. One of what we are planning on doing for this year is using a portion of that money that will be sold to help go towards the 175th. So it'll kind of be a small fundraiser for the 175th. Tim Tudor thought it would be good for us just to leave those banners up as long as we could, whether that is right through the end of the year, and maybe not put up the winter banners when they typically put the winter banners up. I'm sure that they don't want to do them out in the cold, you know what I'm saying? But we could leave them up all year long. Casey is putting together a design that we're hoping that we can introduce at the banquet on Saturday, and actually have those up. They can have them done within 2 weeks. So,
I think the CGI, the company that does this, did do community video for us, I think 6 years ago, when we first did our website. They are a reputable company, they do a nice product, but I do think the banners are better suited for us to handle here locally. We just want to make sure everybody's aware of it. I see Casey is here, thank you, and really what it is about the merchants, the businesses in town advertising, it gives them a chance to put their name out there, gives us a chance to put banners up there, as long as we can have somebody marketing that and
Yep.
and getting the businesses on board. It's a great idea, and I agree that, Todd and Nikki and Casey have all worked on this, and I appreciate the work they've done, but if the council's okay with it, I would recommend that we just let the chamber run with it, support them in what they're doing. It's really from our standpoint, it's mostly allowing them to put it on our light poles, which we've done. That's not new. The hardware is there. We don't have to recreate that. I think it's really a win-win for everybody, if the council's
Has there been
okay.
any feedback from local businesses?
So we have not pushed it out to local businesses yet because we weren't sure where the council would go with it, whether you're going to pursue it with them. We just wanted to have our ducks in the row that we'd like to be able to introduce it at the chamber banquet on Saturday and on Monday, put that out to the public. So,
And this says all cost-free, is it?
CGI will come in, they ask for us to give a letter of support so that they have some credibility in town. It costs the city nothing to put these banners up. They guarantee us, I think it's 25 banners, whether they sell an ad or not. Then they go out and they market to our businesses to put advertising on these banners. They do all the marketing, they collect all the money. When they did the videos, there was a couple people felt like they were kind of being strong-armed a little bit. I don't think that they're over-aggressive, but for our Midwest flavor, they're probably more aggressive than we're accustomed to. And again, a good company, they have a good product, but I think that if we're going to do the marketing and the businesses want to engage in it, it's going to be much better coming from the chamber, coming from Signs and More, our local businesses. We know each other. It's still a no cost to us, just like CGI. The banners are paid for through advertising, and that's the difference. They're banking on selling enough advertising to put up 25 to 50 banners, whatever we give them for polls.
we have room for 45 is what Tim counted, and there's
Right.
45 poles.
So Nikki, you think this is going to be much more cost-effective for our businesses?
Well, we don't have to pay we don't have to pay an installer to come in. The hardware is already there. I mean, they were going to have to pay an installer to come in, redo the hardware, all of that kind of stuff. So we don't have to pass all of that off on to the retailers or businesses or individuals or anybody who wants to purchase one of these. And they are going to be 175th birthday themed, so they will be.
And I think CGI, when they did the videos and when they talked about the banners, about 3 years ago, we had an initial conversation about this. I think it was
I
about.
was on the chamber board at that time too, yeah.
I think it's about $1,500 for a 3-year commitment, a program for the businesses.
Per business?
Per business. And that would match kind of that price range that they were selling ads for, if I remember right, on the website. Videos, they had windows around, or window framed a video and did advertising there. It was marginally successful as far as the number of businesses advertising. I think this could do a lot better than what that did.
Yeah, I mean, even if there were individuals that would want to buy one, it is, it's going to be a fundraiser for us for the 175th, so.
But I think, since you've got the, kind of the mechanism to get the sales and stuff, that was, Todd and I listened to the presentation, and it was, okay, let's get this out to the council, to the 175th. As you said, volunteers are kind of hard to come by, and so, fortunately, Todd went out, talked with Signs and More, and I personally would like to keep it in town, but it was an option that maybe ignited this conversation.
Yep, yeah. I didn't even think of it as a fundraising opportunity for us for this, so this will be a good opportunity for us to add a little funds and do some more fun things over the.
What's the banner cost, Casey, for a business average?
Just like if we were gonna print them, I think we quoted it at 105,
120, I think.
100, yeah, somewhere around there. And I think I told her if we just do all 45 banners, that she would only have to sell 15 advertising. And that was at $200 or $300 a banner.
Yeah.
And in turn, that money's gonna go back into the chamber. And with them already putting the banners up twice a year anyway, we didn't need that to be installed. So it's a big cost savings to the advertisers.
Right.
It's good.
So
Thank you.
with these banners, this decorative street banner program, they weren't going to put them up?
Oh, yes, yeah, they'll put them up, they'll maintain them, they'll put the hardware in, but they charge a lot more because they're kind of starting from scratch on what they do. They have to hire a crew to come in and do it. We're blessed having some of that capability already here.
Right now, as it is, every time one of the metal brackets that go around the pole, please help me with what that's called. I'm
The
looking at-
band,
The band that goes around the brackets, Tim Tudor calls us. The chamber pays for those out of our pocket. We order 24 to 36 of them at a time from a company in Illinois. We have them sent, so, I mean, I just feel like it's probably a good partnership between,
Well, I think somewhere in the paper or something needs to explain that, because if I was just sitting in the public and seeing this, I'd think, wow, here was something that was cost-free to the city, they turned it down, and they're gonna get somebody local to do it, which is great, but then we're gonna pay. Well, this isn't really cost-free.
this is cost-free to the city, but it isn't cost-free to
the advertising.
the advertisers, Bank Iowa, if you wanted to buy one with your name up on it, so it's not. And I think it's a 3-year commitment from
Yes.
those businesses. So say we decide we want to go a whole different route next year, you know what I mean? Like, we can do something different. Tim did tell me that the white banners that have the independence, it was either the white banners or the Christmas banners are coming to the end of their life. They're starting to get a little ratty and stuff like that. So we'd probably have to think about going in that direction. So, yeah. And I did send some different designs to Casey and said, hey, design whatever and let us know, so.
Yeah, when they say free, that means that taxpayers don't pay for it through the city.
Right.
The merchants pay for it through their advertising.
Can you put something in the paper about that, John, so that understands that?
Yeah,
Free,
yeah,
free.
right.
I like the idea of being able to use the existing hardware that we have and not have two sets of banner sizes out there that
Yeah.
we're having to deal with.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
Tim
bet he
really likes
does.
that idea.
And I like anything local.
Well, it makes it easier on you guys too when you're printing them. So you have a standard size that you
We
do.
can print them any size.
Yeah.
When you go to install them, and you gotta change one of the top or bottoms to
Yeah.
fit. Like Tim said, some of them might go in 5 minutes, and some of them might be 20 minutes. I
Right.
can strip something out, and he said, I like it,
Yep.
just keep them where they're at.
Yeah.
I think local businesses would rather have you get some money than
Yeah,
New York City.
we'll count on 6 of them in Bob Hill's name, right?
Well, I like the idea of trying to hold the cost down to the businesses because we're already asking them to do the music downtown and some of the other things. And I don't want them to get it so it's not reachable for them.
And my thing is it just doesn't have to be businesses. It could be
Yeah.
an individual, it could be,
Mayor?
the mayor, I know.
Council members,
It was already
I'm going
sent
to throw
out.
everybody under the bus if
Yeah,
I'm going
Mary
there.
Kay Johnson already sent it out to the Lisa's group, and we'll have a meeting tomorrow night, which I'm sure we'll probably purchase one also, so, yeah.
Well, they said, they did say when they do these, when people buy themselves, a lot of times when you take them down, if you're not going to use them, people, they would like them back.
I think that would be our intent, was whoever purchased them, whether it's an individual, business, organization, that would be theirs after we're done with them. So, obviously, in our case like this one, they wouldn't be used again, I mean, because they're gonna be at
Yeah,
170.
especially if it's 175th, it's not like every year.
Is that like Groundhog's Day, where you keep going over and over?
And with going with this, they're just gonna be obligated to buy that one for the 1 year, right? Whereas
Yeah.
this here is 3 years, you're
3
saying,
years.
and
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
What's interesting, I think I read today, the University of Iowa was founded 175 years ago. So we were founded about the same time the University of Iowa.
Probably not a coincidence.
Well, Laura did tell me today in an email that Independence was the first free public library in the state. I don't know if you knew that, but Independence had the first free public library in the state. So,
Had a good history.
we do. We do.
Well, thank you, Nikki.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks.
You'll bring that up on Wednesday then at the,
Yeah, I'll share it with the group on Wednesday
Okay.
at the meeting too.
okay, building inspector and code enforcement wages. I think you all saw in the agenda that Al had put together some various comparisons. I don't know if we have a recommendation from anybody on how to handle this. Basically, the conversation during the council meeting was that we are changing the job description, and I think there was some feeling that, you know, as far as wages, we needed to discuss it. I don't know, a thought I had, I talked with Al on this, is maybe this year we forego that position's 3% raise, but leave the current salary at that level. I'm just throwing that out there to start discussion. We would be not giving some money, but yet I think we all think a good job is being done, and it's difficult to find a person. It's like these banners. A lot of people would just have thrown that in the wastebasket and said, not my department. Okay?
I think my comments to the council are, obviously, we've all had numerous conversations about this. We've held it numerous here in the open council meetings, and I think that the one thing that I've heard from us as a group of council members, two different sides of this. One is the approach in a general manner, talking about the position itself. And then also, I've also heard, probably based on history, it tends to go back to an individual. And I think that I asked the council to look at it as a office or a position being held, because if a particular individual was to leave at any time in any of our city positions, we're gonna be rehiring back to that position, not to that person. So I throw that out there. That's what I have had to objectively make sure that all of my conversations were about the position and not the individual whom we had made some decisions for, or taken some recommendations or
Good point,
from
Brian.
before.
That's a very good point.
And that is a good point, because if we were to have to try and hire somebody, it'd be what the market currently is, which is something we need to really pay attention to.
Which I think just corresponds with the information that Al gave to
Put
us
Yeah.
here
together
on
here.
this.
Yeah,
Jen,
I agree.
Tom?
Oh, I'll pass right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Deb?
Okay, this position, did it get about 14,000 more for taking on this?
A little over 13.7, yes.
Okay, so let's just even say the 12, that's what figure I've heard throughout the council meeting. So I think if you step down from a job, it should be the 12,000 less.
Okay. Mike, you there?
Yeah,
Okay. Did you hear what's been said so far, Mike?
I have, and I would consider, I'd go with the 31 an hour, and that would be it.
Okay.
And I will also call those places to see if that is the actual, or if there's other and sundry duties that go along with it.
Okay. 30, do we have 31 here on your list, Al?
The comparability at Olwine is 3126, Manchester at 3164 are the numbers that we have, and then Nevada has a range of 2766 to 3689.
And what are we at here now?
We are currently at 3203.
So we're about it. Mike is recommending 31. I guess is, come back around, John, what would you feel?
I look at it as where we're at on the open market. And I know Owine has a staff of 3. And granted, they have a rental inspection program that they're having to do. But our individual has the building inspections, the code enforcement, floodplain, which a lot of cities don't have a floodplain. So it's not apples to apples all the time. I think I'm going to vary a little bit from Brian had brought up the job versus the individual, but I think we have to look at the individual's done a really good job for us also. And I don't want to see him severely penalized. I am inclined to go along with what Mayor Hill suggested, is to forego the 3%, leave him at what he's at right now, and I don't want to see him penalized, but he is stepping down from some duties, and I think maybe that 3% would be a good concession.
I think just to add on, that floodplain is just a whole beast in itself.
Can be.
Yeah, along with the other job duties that he's taken on too.
One thing that, when you mentioned the floodplain, don't forget that Todd is taking us into the new CRS program, reducing the flood insurance for those that are in the floodplain. That does not affect everybody in town, but those that are required to have flood insurance, that will have an effect there. And that's not a small task. Just want to make sure you're aware of some of the extra things that are there above and beyond. We did hear Mr. Beatty comment on Parks and Rec is different in every town. I think other than maybe city manager or city clerk, police chief, there's a lot of difference in all of our positions. They all have a little bit different duties. We have to tweak each of them a little bit, but anyway, that's all. I just wanted to remind you of that.
So, if just so far, for what I'm hearing here is, John, you're stay at the 3203?
Yes.
Jen, to say it to 3203? Okay, Brian?
I agree.
Okay, Catherine? Tom, let's see, Tom?
Fine, yeah.
Okay.
And I want to be careful, you're
Can't do
not
anything.
taking a vote
No,
tonight.
no, I'm just what you think,
What are your thoughts?
because I've got everybody's thoughts down
This is
here.
a salary position right now, right?
It is not a salaried position because it, as of
Hourly.
2 weeks ago, it became hourly based on, it doesn't meet the wage and hour standards for supervision or an expert position that would qualify as salaried. So it is hourly.
So it went from salary to hourly.
That's correct, but just in the last 2 weeks.
That's due to the splitting.
When we split it off, there was no more supervision. Wage and hour says to be salaried, you have to supervise 2 or more full-time equivalents. That's oversimplified, I apologize, but in essence, that's the criteria.
Well, I'm going to say it simply as I've said it all along, when you step down from duties. I'll give you an example. When I worked, there was an aide. She went to school to be a nurse. She got the position. She didn't like it. She wanted to step back down. Hey, no problem, you step back down, but you're not going to keep the money.
Okay.
And I don't disagree with what you're saying, Deb. I agree with you. What I have done is had to weigh between, in that position, if we have an individual who has institutional knowledge and years of experience to help us continue moving in a great direction, if that person or individual was no longer in that position, we're rolling the dice with a new person that we're going to pay market value for. So I guess that's what kind of swayed me to that direction, is to say, with doing this, I feel more confident in doing this for an individual who has proven themselves and has a good track record, as opposed to us possibly bringing someone else into that position. I just think that, from my standpoint, that's why I think that it's better for the city to do that than, even though it's more money, we work every day to reduce that, there's no doubt.
Okay, thank you.
Well said, Brian.
Mike, you have another comment?
Yeah, he put a position, or he put a component of the position, and, Brian, I'm sorry, but, you know, even if somebody has proven themselves, if they quit or died or whatever, we'd have to replace them, so there'd be, you know, that would be the beginning level, and I doubt it, at beginning level, we'd go to $31 an hour, but, I mean, 31 an hour is only $1 an hour less than what he was making, but to me, I agree with what John Cruz said last time. It's a bad precedent to start to leave somebody where they were when they lose duties. So that's where I am with it.
Okay, thank you, Mike. I guess we've discussed it. Al, you kind of got a general consensus?
Well, this is your opportunity to have the conversation. This will be on the agenda. It needs formal action. Whatever you decide to do, it will be left neutral. The council will have to make their motion and decide what you want to do on Monday. But the purpose of tonight is to put the conversation out there for you.
Okay.
Well, while we're talking about the,
Oh, sorry, Tom?
while we're talking about the pay increases, generally throughout the departments, do those, if we approve the pay increases, do they take effect July 1?
That's correct. All of the pay activity that you've done to this point are effective July 1.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments? Thank you very much. I think we had a very good conversation and a lot of good comments made. So if no other comments, we will move on to discussion on the street rehab. We all kind of know what happened at the last meeting as far as our current 2022 summer street project. I think Brian, I appreciated Brian's comment because I'd forgot all about it. For those on TV, we will be voting to probably not accept the contracts at the next meeting, but because we were in the process of those contracts coming in, we have to really take a position on those. So we're not bringing it back up so people see that on next agenda. Don't worry that we're trying to backdoor something here. So I think what we're talking about tonight, and Al, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're kind of where does the council want to go? We had basically 174,000 that we were looking at using for those, 8 or 9 blocks that we had in that 2022 summer project?
Well, we've got really a balance of 174,000 as we best guess right now. I know it's hard to believe, but Brian likes to get paid for the work that he does. And so there is some engineering expenses that we've already expended on this project. But right now, we're really talking about 174,000 kind of hanging out there. Some of it can go to other projects. Some of it is not earmarked for anything. There was some discussion about, do we just go to a different set of streets? And that's why it's on here is.
There were some people that voted yes to getting their streets done. Is that something we could take a look at?
There's kind of one block in here, if you look at this, it looks to me
Yeah,
like.
that's kind of what I was looking at too. There are some people who do think.
But then, you know, you get into that, I've had calls about that. And I don't know how many of those people, but they get their road done, they're not gonna pay for it anyway because their address don't face that side.
Well, I mean, the council we have to reinitiate the entire process. Now, there's 2 ways a special assessment process can work. One is we set the project up like we did this one. We send out a preliminary assessment notice saying, we're thinking of doing your project and this is how much we think it's going to cost you. That's the process you just experienced. The other option is if somebody wanted to have a street done, they could petition the city to voluntarily assess themselves. That would shorten the process significantly. So if these people want to do, and I'll use the one block that you identified. If we're going to do one block, those people come in, they ask us, they request us to do the assessment on that block, and that's something we could do under that scenario without going through all of the mailings and the public hearings and what have you.
Isn't, one of the problems though is when we get these bids for those projects, that was based on X amount of work to be done. And now if we say, would you still come in and work on one or two blocks for that same per block cost?
We can't do that. This would suggest that we have a new project, standalone project, might not take the full engineering cost because a lot of the work's been done. It does have to be rebid. You have to start that bidding process all over again because it's a different project. Even though it's the same block in the same larger picture, this one would be a smaller project.
When would that bidding, if, let's say we had 2 or 3 people wanted to do it, when would we get bids?
I think Mr. Crawford can answer that better than I can. If we theoretically received a petition on the 28th of March, be realistic, and said, we're going to start this project with the engineering work where it's at, how long would you anticipate the bidding to be out there to do a revised project?
I think Tom had a comment first. Go ahead.
Yeah, I heard through the grapevine rumor that I also have on in Fifth Ward, similar to Deb, that there's citizens that want to have their street done. And-
Right, oh, and I don't want to limit it to just, I'm using that example of one
No, I
block, Tom,
understand
so I
that.
appreciate that.
I just want to make sure that people know that they have that option available.
Right.
But the percentage would be a lot higher for them to assess value. If they went the route, like you said, of just doing that one block and they petitioned it, right?
Well, I mean, I think the council would have to make that decision if you're going to hold it at the $30 a linear foot. That is a council decision, that's not etched in stone or law anyplace. I would argue for the fact that if they ask us to do it and they're willing to pay the $30,
Yeah.
in this case, we have some funding set up already in place, the council has that flexibility if you so choose. The one thing I'd have to double check on is if it has to be a unanimous petition or if it's a majority of the property owners in that area. So I'd want to double check on that.
Well, question I would have, and Brian, you can answer, is we were going to do what, 8 or 9 blocks? So let's say again, hypothetically, we get 8 people from all over the city, each have one block or their house they would like to have worked on. And we say they all have to have that, their request in here. Would they have to have the whole block that they live on, or just in front of their house?
No, they would have to have the block. They'd have to carry their block.
Okay, so they'd have, if there are 3 houses on that block, all 3'd have to sign the petition?
Well, and that's the part I'm not sure I have an
That's-
answer for in the percentage.
Yeah, that's what Al was mentioning, that we need to double check that percentage on a voluntary assessment. There's not a lot of those voluntary assessment projects out there, which is why neither one of us are familiar with exactly what the requirements are in order for that petition to mandate the council to do something about the street.
Have you got any calls about that, Al, that saying they want that? Or you just,
No, I'm just giving you the option. I have had calls of people saying, we understand you're not doing the assessment. Please do the street. We don't want to pay for it, but we want you to do the street.
And if you read the petition carefully, that's a good point. If you read the top of that petition that was signed, that's actually what the top of the petition said, was that it was about canceling the assessment. It wasn't necessarily about canceling the project, but as you guys have stated, if you cancel the assessment, you kind of have to repackage the project based on the funding that was set up, so.
Okay. Now, my second question is, in all the years I've been on the council, whenever we've done a project, you've always said, let's get this thing done so we can start getting bids, get them out there and have them write those bids in, like, right now, March, before they roll their equipment out of mothballs. If we would do this, and let's say we got 9 blocks even, do you think we would get a reasonable bid in June, May, June, July on, like we get now?
Well, I think you guys, the point that you're bringing up is a very valid point. What you guys have seen here on the council is really economical, competitive bid processes when we take care of the design in the fall and we try and get these things bid in, January, February, and March. And as soon as the contractors are busy, those pencils aren't quite as sharp as they're bringing the bids in. And that's what you've experienced, some real economies of scale on the early bid processes. For me to speculate, I think it wouldn't be responsible for me to speculate on how busy the contractors are right now. What we've seen so far in bids, you guys had, I don't want to misquote this, 9 bidders on the trail project? 7 or 9, I forget now.
I think it was 9.
But that's a lot of bids on a trail, on a $400,000 trail project. So I think the bidding environment is still very good. As far as the question that Al had for me about timing, it's not just the engineering timing we're talking about, because once we retool the bid package, we also have to look at the notifications that are required. You still have to have a public hearing, no more than 4, no less than 20 days from the notice. You still have to have a notice to bidders, and that goes out no less than 13, no more than 45 days. So getting that whole process back onto a calendar, you're going to have more time in just the notices than you probably will in engineering time to retool. As Al said, we don't have to go to all that work to put an entire set of plans together. We can basically chop it up if we have a known scope and get it repackaged. We still will have to recompute the quantities because these are unit price contracts that we're putting together. So we've got to give the contractors an idea of what quantities they're going to be looking at. And frankly, when you don't have that 9 blocks, you're not going to get the economy of scale style bids, to your point.
I think we've learned a really valuable lesson. We identified these streets, well, actually back in 2017, but we prioritized them way last summer, fall.
Right.
I'm thinking what we really need to do is do a better job of notifying homeowners that, hey, your street has been identified, and for your own purpose, all you'd have to do is measure your frontage and take it times $30 a square foot or a linear foot, and you'd get an idea what your bid is. For them to say they want to be able to save for a few years to do it is unrealistic. But we could give them a lot more warning.
Yeah.
Well,
And
they
I
can
think
print the
a lot of them really figured that they were going to have to pay this $1,900 to $5,000 right away.
Yeah.
And they didn't understand that it's out over 10 years.
Right.
Deb?
The questions that we fielded,
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Deb?
We could easily print in the paper, Brian's got how many years down the road of the blocks that would be the next ones to do. That'd be tentatively.
Right,
I think the next 5-year program that you guys look at, I think that's certainly something, I feel like the council, we had these discussions, in very open forum, so don't sell yourselves short on the process that you followed. No, we didn't go out and contact the people, but.
We identified those streets.
Right, we identified the streets.
But the community doesn't.
Yeah, I understand that they.
I had one person ask me, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, when his street was gonna be done. So I pulled those papers out that you had, we all had copies of that told what year their street was projected to be done. So if people would see that even in the paper maybe once a year, say, hey, now I'm 3 years away, and 2, and it would help. But a lot of calls I got about that.
That's a really big booklet, though, to be.
It is, and-
Depending on a newspaper to be able to print.
Right, and conditions.
No, just a
change,
small,
too.
it's only a small, we had it on 1 or 2 pages, just a simple one. The simple one just says, in 2017, these are the 9 blocks we're gonna do.
Yep, we had kind of an outline based on that big study of those 40 or so blocks that
Yeah.
we identified. And so, the only thing I would add to that is that conditions do change over a period
Right.
of 5 years. We had a couple that we had to put in because of heavy detour traffic. We added those in and maybe pulled a few out. So there is a little bit of danger to putting that out there and then
You
having.
put tentatively, though. too.
Tentatively, yep. No, I agree.
At
A
least
lot
it
of the
gives them a
phone
heads up
calls-
somewhere.
Yeah, John, a lot of the phone calls that I took, it was just confusion. And once I explained that, no, you can spread this over, 10 years. The project isn't even gonna be complete until the end of the year. That was information that was even, I think, lacking, because when I told them, no, your final assessments won't be due probably until the first of next year, that was a relief to some. So,
And there's a lot of information shared from Brian's office from City Hall here. The one thing I want to caution the council on is we can't commit you to a 10-year or a 4% rate on assessments. The council has to make that decision at the end of the assessment. We can share, this is what we've done in the past. This has been our practice. This is, kind of the benchmark we've set. But we can't commit the council to that until you actually vote. So it sounds a little wishy-washy. We don't mean it to be, but likewise, I can't say, well, the council's going to give this to you because you haven't voted on it. So we can't do that ahead of time. And
Yep.
I don't want it to get like we're being vague with them. We just can't do that.
Well, and
We
that,
also don't
the
know-
same thing with the doing 2 sides. When we've had that, we traditionally haven't done it, but like you said, I had people, well, give me a written note on that, and I'm okay. We can't do that.
Until the council votes.
we'd probably want the legal counsel to give a little bit of advice too about the notices, because the notices have a window that you have to abide by. It's spelled out in the Iowa code, so that if you notify them outside of that window, then all of a sudden the assessments aren't valid anymore. So,
Right.
so I think we'd want John Danos and others to give us some guidance on some of that if we're going to stray at all from what's spelled out in the Iowa
You're
code.
talking about mailing them 2 weeks before the public hearing?
Yes, yep, that's that, and then published consecutive, 2 consecutive times. There's rules in there.
Yep,
Suzie
it's-
knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's published on the same day for 2 consecutive weeks. The mailing has to be basically after the first one, but before the second one. So usually I mail them say use the Bulletin Journal as an example. I try to do the 2 Wednesdays. So I will have the letters ready and I'll put them in the Dropbox Tuesday night to go. Because there's tight deadlines on when things have to be mailed out.
And if you mail them too soon, all of a sudden you're outside of that window, because the Iowa code has stated, we want them to be notified between here and here. And, I imagine they did that so that you're still giving enough notice, but not too much notice that people forget about it and don't have a good opportunity to come and talk. So just some other things, no
But-
roadblocks there, just things that we want to be aware of moving forward.
And I want to put us back on track. The discussion here is, do we do a different 2022 street rehab project, followed up with, can they request a special assessment on their own, so we're not violating our commitment to the last 5 years of projects, so.
I guess my other thought to this is, do we go ahead then and just move forward with another 5-year program at some point in time? Instead of doing something this year, just take this money and whip it into the next 5-year program?
Well,
Do that, or does this have to be?
I have to be a little careful with this money, because this money in the general obligation bond was earmarked for a certain set of activity. Now, anything within that umbrella is okay, but it was set for this set of activity, for this funding. As far as projects go, my strong recommendation would be take a deep breath, start your new 5-year plan, and move on. These streets need attention. I know they do. We don't want to lose momentum. But it feels like anything we do right now is going to be rushed. I don't think our bid environment is favorable. And the chatter that's in the statewide right now are the numbers of projects coming in well outside of bid thresholds on all kinds of projects. I'm not saying this one would. I'd love to give everybody a chance to be generous with the residents of Independence, but the environment right now isn't in our favor.
If we was to go to the next 8 or 9 blocks that we would have done next year, the next year you've got planned, and put those in,
Well, we don't have 8 or 9 blocks for next year because we've kind of been gearing up to take a
well, that
breathe-
paper goes clear up till, that I've got,
Yeah, we do, Crawford
Right.
Engineering does. and
Yes.
The street department does. We haven't presented it to, the group yet, but you're right, we do have the next year's. In fact, Todd and I know them by heart because we.
so if we'd put that in forth, I don't think
You're
stop
going through a
it,
whole new bid process. It's-
Right.
It's totally different roads. I mean.
right.
This is my opinion. Okay, you guys had something great going. Don't stop because, I mean, we chose these roads. I did, street department, Crawford Engineering. We had another firm come in. I mean, they chose these roads for a reason. We weren't playing darts. Like, they are bad.
Iowa State University was also
Yeah.
involved in that.
Okay, so what you're doing is, they're gonna be paid, you have to pay $30 a linear foot. You're passing that buck on to the next person that's gonna have to be paying $100 a linear foot. Because they're gonna have to do total reconstruction. We have life left that you could use. These things, I mean, so when you're doing that, how much more potholing and stuff are we gonna have to do on these roads? Like, you're putting that work back on the street department because those roads are crap. Like, we chose those for a reason.
And how many snowplow blades are gonna get torn up going over those same,
I mean,
Broken
this is, you
streets.
guys did something awesome, and I am kicking myself for not being here last time, because don't stop what you're doing. And how valid is somebody's thing? If I front load you with a bunch of questions, I can get the right answers. I can get what I want. I mean, you should make sure they talk to those people, they know exactly the right information that they were gonna get. Like, okay, well, he didn't tell me this, or this, or this. Okay, here are the facts. Stay with what you got. I mean, you guys worked hard to come up with that. That's just my opinion. It's gotta be done. What if next 5-year program, every single place is like, oh, all you gotta do is do a petition, and then you don't have to get them done. Just imagine. Like, we're gonna be back to dirt roads.
But taxpayers got the right to voice all that.
But how do you know that all that information is, like, I could go around and get a whole bunch of signatures, and how do I know that they got all that right information?
Here's my feeling on this, Todd, is that we did 4 years, things went pretty smoothly. To me, what happened this year was a learning experience for citizens, because they came in and we had this pot of gold that they were, absolutely, we had. As you said, the petition said, we want it fixed. I mean, it's kind of interesting because they now want them fixed, but last council meeting, we heard, oh, this road's great, been that way for 30 years. Well, it can't be as good as it was 30 years ago, but I think the lesson that people learned this year is if you're going to complain and you're going to send a petition here, your street's not going to get fixed for nothing. You're going to have to be assessed. And I think that happened with this year's project. It's a learning experience. We go on to 2023. We put together our streets for 2023. And those people that'll be on that 2023 list are going to know that I don't care who comes to my door and tells me this or that. And there was a lot of misinformation. I've had people call me since they, after they signed it, and they go, well, that's not what I was told. I said, well, you had my phone number before you signed the petition. I think this was all a learning experience that next year, citizens, be careful what you wish for. You might get it. And I think that's where this year's project, I think we should do another 5-year project starting next year, but we've done it systematically, we've been organized, we've approached it. This year, we hit a hiccup. We had a couple of people that went out and got all kinds of information. They called cities and asked half questions. I was interesting, one of the comments was made that cities told them that's not the right way to do it. I was told by another one of the person who did the calling, they were told it's not the right way to do it if you want to get reelected. Now, there's a whole difference in what they're saying there. So that's where I'm coming from, that people learned a lesson, we learned a lesson. I agree with Deb. I think we need to put out, when we do next year, we put out, here's the next 5 years of streets we're going to work on. Here's what we think the schedule is going to be. Brian, you answered one of the questions that came up. Why didn't we send these letters out 4 weeks before? And I think we've answered that question now. Most of us, I didn't know we had this window, as Susie described. So it was a learning experience for all of us. So they did force us to do some educating, but to jump into something haphazard because we're afraid we won't do it in 2023, this can be our year of taking a breath. Having the Public Works Committee sitting down with Todd and Brian and Al, and okay, here's what we're going to do with the next 5 years, and bringing it to us, and then we started in 2023. We were going to do this year and not do anything in 2023.
Doesn't this money have to be spent on roads, being that's what we have set it aside for?
Whatever was in the bond issue, we have roads and trails primarily, yes. I mean, those are the things that we have identified. So the money has to be spent there. It can also be used to repay it. I mean, but that's what we have out there right now.
Well, if people aren't wanting to pay for their roads, then we turn around and take this money and don't put it into anything in roads, we're defeating our purpose there. I think that 174,000, which I thought would have been closer to the 300,000, because it was kind of a 272,000 a year we've been doing for projects.
Where does this money go if we don't use it on the,
It's
just,
on roads.
Well, it either gets repaid or it goes into
okay.
roads or trails. The things that are identified for, on the bond issue, we told the people that bought the bonds that this is what was going to be used for. If it's not used for that, it would get repaid.
Well, can't we use it like a CIP if we're going to?
No.
No.
What we can do is.
That was a
so
clear answer.
When we got the bond proceed money, Liberty Trail didn't get all of its money. 6th Avenue Southwest Trail didn't get all of its money. So what I would like to see done is if you guys take a year off, put that money to those 2 trail projects. Because otherwise, you're short money there. And that doesn't look good when you get to audit time of, well, your projects, you're still going negative. You're not
I don't
fixing
agree with
it.
that. I agree to put it on roads, because people have, also the calls I got was, you spend all this money on trails when we need the roads. And if you put the money on the roads, we wouldn't have to pay the assessed value because you'd have enough money to pay for the roads.
So, to keep us on track, the 2022 street rehab project, the council has to make a determination, not tonight, I mean, you have to discuss it tonight, but if you're going to go someplace with that, what does that look like? And that would be the direction we'd have to have.
In my opinion, timing-wise, we do not have time to do it right, and we're gonna end up with more headaches than we have
Brian, are you
right
saying we
now.
have time?
Deb?
Not
Deb, wait.
realistically.
John's talking.
Not realistically, we do not have time to get good, solid bids, they're gonna come in high, and we're gonna be looking at a problem.
So if we was to bid that, and you were right and it was too high, we could turn that down. Is that right or not?
You would have the right to reject all bids, absolutely. The question is, and again, I'm not picking on Brian, you're still going to pay for engineering.
And Dorsey and Whitney costs.
And
So
our-
this money is going to continue to dwindle down to where,
Just like
That was
this.
Whoa, was that a
We can go
fact
buy
or
a
what?
big gulp.
Susie, where are you?
She's dwindling down.
I'm dwindling down.
Is that chair?
So if you
I
You start
understand now.
project, okay, so you scrap the proposed location, you're gonna keep using this money to where it's gonna dwindle down, to where you're not gonna have any money to do a project. So why not use it for two projects you know you need the money for? Because Liberty Trail, 6th Avenue Southwest, there's no, Liberty Trail, there's no grant money. So the city has to come up with that money somehow to pay for that project.
Are you
So why
talking
not?
about Enterprise Drive and
No,
6th
no,
Avenue?
Liberty Trail, the
That's
one
the-
we just awarded.
Right, Liberty Trail from
There's-
Dry Run Creek down to the Triangle Park Pond.
Okay.
There's not enough money to fund that project.
That was $21,000 more than what we put into the bond to do the full stretch. That's what we said. We got a really good price on it, but there's $21,000 short on that bid price. $380,000 to the $401 that we got for a bid price.
Okay, here's the other question. 150 is gonna cost us a fortune for infrastructure. Will there be money that we
That
could
is-
put toward the, instead of borrowing the total amount that we were going to for 150?
For 150, I put, that got all of its bond proceed money. That is fully funded with bond.
We paid, I mean, that's under the same umbrella.
But have
the
we
same
sold
bond.
all those bonds?
Yes. Yes.
How about the road project in front of Casey's and Spawn Rose over there we've talked about?
You mean First Street West reconstruction?
Oh, that'd be
That, I
huge.
don't know if we could, that's something different that was not in this bond issue. That'd be a question for
That would be a
and Whitney.
Dorsey question before I spent it. I don't think that's going to,
Take care of it.
I'm not sure that would cover our
Engineering.
engineering costs, yeah. I mean, just to put it out there, that's a big project.
Engineer aspect, what do you say we would do, Brian?
Well, I think you've got, and, yeah, I think.
Can I
you've
let
got-
Brian think on that for just a minute? I want to bring up one more thing about the bid process. Okay, we've already had bids go out, and we will find out next week what those bids were. If we expect those guys to lose all those bids and come back and give us favorable bids on a whole new set of projects, I got a bridge I can sell you.
There you go.
And I don't want to ruin our reputation as being one that we put you to all this work getting these bids pulled together and then end up jerking you around and not awarding the bid to anybody.
Yeah,
And I don't want to see that reputation.
Yep.
Because right now, we've been getting really favorable bids
Yep, and you want next year's project
to work.
to have that same bid environment.
Yeah.
So I agree with you.
And now you can answer your question.
Yeah, like I said, the timing, I agree with John, you guys are at more of a disadvantage than you would have been, taking the bids at this time of year, and that, I'm not telling you guys anything you don't already know. I guess the question I have is, as we move forward with the 5-year plan, how do you want us to account for the streets that were in this year's program? I mean, do you want us to completely put those aside?
They're still at the top of the list. They're the worst ones, and they're
Right,
still gonna be.
they're the worst concrete ones. We've been alternating asphalt and concrete, so we can go back to the worst of the asphalt ones and do another mill and overlay project rather than crack and seed. And, depending upon the input from Public Works and and the council, then do we alternate back to those same ones that we're on, or are you guys at a point where if the people didn't want it done, like Deb said, don't do it, leave them alone?
I've had two people that said, please put me on next year's. After they figured everything out and understood the system and what the information given to them, and I think that's what we go, first of all, we go back. Yeah, that we go back and we say to these people, we're putting together 2023. You were meant to be in 2022. Now you know all the facts. How many of you want in?
Yeah.
And
And the plans that we have, you still have value in those plans, because those plans can be bid again next year with new dates. I mean, the roads aren't gonna get any better. There might be a little bit more full depth base repair, but for the most part, take that same set of plans, put new dates on them, and get bids again. So the value in the engineering is still there for you.
seeing if we only get 4 blocks that, from this year, then we go to the next 5 that are on our list. I mean, I think that's the only way we can do it.
And I think Todd's point is the maintenance dollars that he's spending on the streets that are in the program, that's his concern, and that's a lot of the input that he gets from his crews, from his plow drivers, that when we go out and drive the streets each year to make sure we're still on the worst of the worst.
Yeah, we
that's-
even move
that's
some
really-
around.
Yeah, that's really valuable too.
How many calls did you get about this, Todd?
They don't really, well, obviously I have stepped down, so I don't get any more of those calls. The feedback I'm getting is, okay, now we're doing the same thing we did 25 years ago. Let's not mess with the roads, not piss anybody off, and it's just gonna, all of a sudden, they're gonna deteriorate. We're paying higher taxes, that's what the complaint is, okay? Because we're getting better stuff, we have more services. I mean, the roads are huge, you guys have no idea how much impact you've done in 5 years. I mean,
And this rehab is in lieu of full reconstruction, remember, so we're doing 3 times the, or we're doing, 3 times the streets for the dollar if we get to them before they've basically need to be put in the back of a dump truck, because there's no value there, so.
I think that's what we tell the people that opted out, and if it comes to a total reconstruction on their street, that's their problem. They had the option. I think we asked the people that wanted, now that they know all the facts, and we add streets from the list that all we have. But I think the group that came in here, they were a group that did not want it done no matter what. And
I think they wanted alternative ways to pay for it.
Well, and to remind everybody what Brian said earlier, the petition said that they didn't want to go with the assessments, but they still wanted to have the street work done.
so it means how we're gonna do it.
What's that?
How are we gonna do it if they don't want to be assessed?
I understand.
Property
that.
taxes, that's what they say.
Well, we're talking about the existing streets that we had in the project. I have one question on the 9th Avenue by the checkered flag. How did those footprints get in that concrete, and how long have they been there?
posted on that, like they remember from that day.
From what I know, when that street was originally done, a neighbor kid walked in the cement and they couldn't fix it. So they've been there for like 30-some years.
Wow.
Yep.
I've seen those, I don't know how many times, and I always thought, why didn't they fix that?
Yeah.
That was before my weight loss challenge.
Yeah, evidently.
So the question that I would have the council ponder is,
Okay.
how do we go back to the folks that just said, don't assess us? And we're going to ask them, hey, do you want us to do your street with an assessment next year? It seems a little bit disingenuous to go back and kind of poke them again. I know that some people want it and some people were misinformed. And so there'll be a change of heart, but it doesn't feel right to me to go back to the same group and say, hey, let's try this again. It didn't work last year, so we're just going to keep
So you
coming
say
back.
go on to the next
Maybe we'll go
box.
to the next group and then look at that group
Well,
a year or two down the road.
I,
See if
the,
things-
the best that I would offer you is if you wanted us to send a letter out to this group, I mean, clearly we have the mailing list, and say, hey, if you want it, you can request a voluntary assessment, basically. And if we get those folks, enough people on each block to do that, we can add them to next year's project. I mean,
That would,
from that standpoint, we can reach out to those people that said, hey, wait a minute, I feel misled, I have new information, I want to be included. But I sure wouldn't recommend going back out and saying, hey, we're going to try it again, because now you really irritate some folks. But just a thought. But I think there's other streets that need attention. We're not short of opportunities, to your point, Deb. I just feel like we better move on, even if we try and encourage these others.
I like that because it gives those people who actually to vote for it to begin with that opportunity to make their voices, or let their voices be heard.
Right, and
Yeah.
I think we could base it on a majority or a supermajority of those on that block type of thing. I haven't worked that through in my head, but as you're talking about it, I think there's a chance to look at picking up a block or two here and there, in different parts of town that we've heard some of that from, so.
I don't want to lose the momentum we've got going on our street program. We've really done a lot in the last 5 years, and I hate to see us go backwards. And the group of streets in this one, I say we put down the line another couple of years and maybe approach it again, like you said. Maybe this is the year we just don't do one and deal with the 150 nightmare and be done with it.
I liked Susie's idea too of paying debt on those trails to be able to have those clear.
But this money was marked for roads, not trails.
It was marked for roads and
Well-
trails. It's part of that same package.
But this is the money we were gonna use for these 9 blocks, so.
That's true.
And I get that, but I also don't like having something hanging over our head that we still owe on. I just like to have things paid off and cleared and move forward. And it's not gonna take the whole amount to do that, correct?
That's correct.
So there would still be a portion of that that could be put onto the next road package.
No, it's gotta be used this year.
I'd have to sit down and take a look exactly how we do that.
Okay.
But either way, it's going to reduce our debt obligation, whether we use it to offset a future project or just clear up a portion of this one.
Well, it may not be a right, but one of the things that drives our levy is debt service. Can we just use it to pay off debt service for next year? Not do streets and just
Well, I
use
think-
it toward debt service.
Think of it more as we're going to turn it back in as not used, so it would reduce that portion of it, I think. I'll double check on that, because I haven't run into this before, quite honestly,
It
so.
would be nice if we could pay off the pieces that we owe and then figure out what we can do with that leftover that's the most productive would be,
Okay.
to me, what would be the best way to go.
Someone we haven't heard from, Mike, are you still with us? Did you go to sleep, Mike?
Yeah, nope, I'm here.
Okay. What do you think?
Take the money and pay off debt, or just allow it to be deducted from the bond and look at next year. Because I agree with John, if you wait too long, you're gonna be eating a lot of bids, high-priced bids.
Okay.
So I would wait and just return the money, or keep some of it, like Susie talked about, 21 grand for the completion of the trail. And, that way we're zeroing things out, and the rest of it I would put back in.
What all do we owe?
I don't have the list with me right now, but I do have it in the office. I can tell you after the meeting, or send it out to everybody.
That'd be nice if you could just send it to everybody so we all can have an idea.
Yep.
I think
can
we
do
need to
that.
clarify, Susie, what the $21,000 amount that you talked about was over what we had originally for the trail. It's not
No,
that will
that's
pay it
what-
off.
Al said,
Or, excuse me, I was thinking,
no.
but it's not that we only owe the 21,000 on it, we owe
No.
more than that. It was just that came, when it was completed, it was 21,000 more than what we had sent.
Well, that's the bid that we received, yes.
So what I will send out is my spreadsheet that I created for the bond money we received, where it all got divvied up to. So you guys can see what did not get fully funded with the bond money.
Okay, I think what we were wanting to talk about, do you have a consensus?
I know where we're going with this, and we'll proceed accordingly.
Okay, so I think we know where we're going with the 2022, and now you kind of have that consensus, so you make a recommendation of where we go with the money, and then we can discuss that.
Yep.
Okay, is that okay, Mike? I can't see if you nod your head. It's okay with Mike. Okay, all right, any other comments, questions? Okay, let's move on to another fun discussion.
Welcome. I would-
Oh, Brian?
Is there, I know, Mayor, you appoint, or you assign when we have the Public Works Committee meetings?
Oh, that's right,
We
we
don't
don't
have a
have a committee anymore, do we?
Right, so.
Yeah,
those are upon
I'll do
special-
that with Al, we'll get,
Okay.
okay.
'Cause we can start on that prioritization.
Yeah.
So that we can get through that and get next year's plans done, this year to have that, December or January, early bid letting again next year.
Okay.
The sooner we start with that prioritization, so,
Thank you, I forgot we did away with the committees.
all right. Very good. No more questions for me. I'll sit back down.
Thank you, Brian.
All right,
Thanks, Brian.
thank you.
Okay, solid waste fees, Al, I'm gonna drop that on you.
Yep, I just wanted to remind you, we did talk about in our revenue discussion through the budget process that our solid waste fees are not keeping up with our current contract. We've waited as long as we can, really to bring this forward, but we're at a spot right now where we're using property tax dollars to subsidize a service fee if we don't make this adjustment. And it's been about, I can't remember what I said now, 14 months or 16 months that we've held it flat as opposed to an annual increase. I'm recommending a 7% increase across the board to make up this difference. And I did include in here the spreadsheet that I've used to calculate our revenues based on container size. There are 5 different categories that we base this on. The 96-gallon, the 64-gallon, 32-gallon, the 32-gallon senior rate, and then the second container. And you can see the numbers of each size that we have. The 96-gallon by far the most common with 1,688 at last count. These numbers vary monthly, so it's not locked in stone, but it gives us a place to estimate that.
Al, have we been hit with a fuel surcharge from them yet?
Not yet.
That's got to be coming, I would think.
I would think so too. I just was thinking of that too.
Well, not until it goes over $4. Well, that'd be like yesterday.
I was going to say,
Are we there?
Last week.
So, yes, I believe that is coming as well.
well, and which leads me to, I don't see the fuel car problem easing in the next 2 years.
I would
Or
agree.
probably 3 years.
I was gonna say, I
But
think
anyway,
agree.
yeah. And I'm wondering, is the 7% really enough of an increase?
This
If
only-
we started getting hit with the fuel surcharge?
This does not take into account a fuel surcharge, and it does not take into account anything more than what we know today, anticipating another 3% hit in late summer. September is usually when we get it. So I'm trying to stay ahead of it, so I don't have to come back to you for a year at least. But to your point, John, we will be hit with a fuel surcharge, and that's not in this number.
Is the 3% contract controlled?
The 3% is contract controlled for 5 years. I think it's a 5-year contract.
I just think as we're looking at it, we might be smart to plan ahead and be out in front of it for a change instead of behind.
We just get yelled at once?
Yeah.
I will bring this back to you with that, a suggestion.
Or is an option of the two?
Yeah, I mean, I gave you a draft resolution, so I don't surprise you at the council meeting. I wanted you to know where the numbers came from and how we use it. As a reminder, this also covers our costs with the Waste Amnesty Day, because that's something we pay for as well, and that's coming up June 11th, or that's what we're scheduling it for. So we have some other costs, not just the tipping fee on each of the dumpster sizes, but I'll bring something back to you on Monday revised.
Have we increased this every year, or did we take a couple years off? I thought
We took almost 18 months off, and then we took another 14 or 16-month break. So we've tried
That's what
to
I
stretch
seem
it
to
out over
remember.
the pandemic. It has not been annual with the, kind of the way things are going. We've deliberately tried to step back and ease into it, but, and that's why, part of why we're playing catch-up, is we've tried to ease that burden as much as we can.
Well, I remember we talked about it when we went into the pandemic, that we didn't want to raise it on people that add additional burden. And this was one way we could absorb some of it, but we're past that now.
Thank you. I'm glad to be past it.
Yeah.
Is there a way we can put a dual one in if we get to a point where there looks like no fuel surcharge? Yeah, I don't, that's kind of hard, but I mean, I hate to figure a fuel and by some miracle, we don't have it, or do we just readdress it at that point?
I think you're better off setting it, assuming there is a charge, and if it doesn't pan out, or we hit it and then it goes away, we come back and we reduce it. I think you're gonna be,
And everybody loves it.
absolutely. I mean, I think if you go in there and you don't put it in and then come back and raise it again quickly because it's there, we're in bigger trouble.
Or we may go a longer interval before we have to raise it again.
Right.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Any other, Mike, any comments on the fees, waste management fees?
No, I anticipate the fuel increase also, so
Okay,
we'll have to do what we gotta do.
okay, thank you. Last thing we got here is the LMI housing project.
This is to kind of give you a heads up. This is a framework of our LMI housing program plan that we had developed back in 2017 before we did our last project. I don't see anything in the plan that has to change for us to move forward as far as the plan goes. We'll double check it. But we have $200,000 earmarked in our budget for housing rehab and down payment assistance. We're just kind of throwing ideas out there. The housing rehab or homeowner rehab is the biggest or most popular program that we have. So I think we're going to get a lot of attention, especially with the prices that are out there. We may want to talk about our caps. Last time it was a $7,500 cap per property. That might not cut it with the increase in prices right now. We also put a $25,000 cap on down payment assistance. You might want to double that if you're going to have a meaningful impact for somebody. I don't know, I'm just ideas that are floating out there, but we'd like you to initiate this so we can start the process, see if we can't bring in Intercog to do our income verification, which is an important step, and really start that process so people have a chance to fix their homes this summer and fall.
Question on this, I attended a Habitat for Humanity meeting a week ago or so, and one of the things that Habitat for Humanity is doing is they're switching from building houses to rehabbing houses, existing homes, and they're finding people can afford that better than a brand-new home with all the taxes, and they were wondering if they would be eligible for any of this type of project. You know, they obviously, I don't know, I said I'd bring it up.
I think if they've got the family identified, the family's eligible. I don't know that.
So the family would need to be the applicant.
Right.
And they have their own crews and stuff, which was the thing they were finding is it's difficult to get crews to do small projects, and so they have found they've been helping people rehab their houses.
Has that been in Independence, Bob?
They have a gal that's gonna be out of Independence now. The local Habitat for Humanity, they joined with the Black Hawk County or Cedar Valley out of Waterloo. And Pete Calmer has been lobbying them to get a representative over here. And maybe that would be good to have her come and talk to the council too, just on what their ideas are. But she was there, she just started like 2 weeks ago, but she's going to be in this area separate from Waterloo.
I'll double check on that and see what we can work into our plan, if we have to update our plan to do that.
Okay.
We don't have to act on this next Monday. I just want to make sure we're starting it early enough so we have a chance to get this used yet this summer when people need it and can do the work, so.
Okay, just something they brought up they're kind of changing their direction. You're kind of short.
Bob, the last thing before you close this out, I want to remind everybody that's listening, everybody here, we have our ARPA survey. It's still out there. It's still open. We need your input. I don't get feedback as to where we're at or how many people have responded, but as much as we can, we need people to respond if they haven't already.
Is there a deadline on that?
We are closing this March 24th. So that gives us just over a month worth of survey time. So anybody that hasn't done it, we really want to get that feedback as quick as we can.
Okay. Finally, any council members have anything that we haven't brought up?
What time is the banquet Saturday?
5:30 at Heartland Acres.
5:30?
That's Thursday,
Saturday.
Saturday, and that's regarding the ARPA funds?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Mike, that was a second. The ARPA fund closes March 24th of 2022, the survey. Deb asked, what time does the chamber banquet start Saturday? And that's 5:30. Okay?
I would like to remind Al to please email me with the answer the questions about the ARPA funding that I've requested.
That email's already been sent, Mike.
Okay, when I get my computer back, I'll read it.
Okay, is that, all right? Okay, I'll send that too.
Yep.
Okay, I don't have anything, Al?
Nope, that's all I got.
Susie?
Nope.
Get your chair fixed by next meeting?
If anything, I'll bring my chair out.
Okay.
That chair started here and I couldn't stand it. I was an empty person and then,
I think
I didn't have anything to do with it, ended up over there.
just saying.
Yeah, I did it myself.
Susie will rise to the
It's kind of
occasion.
like-
I think we give it to the attorney while he's not here.
My chair is marked. Okay,
He might end up being
move the marking.
like the lemon chair.
Okay, with nothing else, let's adjourn tonight's meeting. Thank you, everybody.
So moved.
Can't take a motion. We're in a work session.